There are secrets buried in silence, under dust, stone, and sea. Ruins that speak in forgotten languages. Symbols carved by hands no one remembers. Structures too precise, too ancient, built by civilizations we were never told existed. Maps that show Antarctica ice-free. Temples aligned with stars we thought they couldn't see. Tools of metal no blacksmith could forge for another 1,000 years. For generations, the evidence was laughed off, labeled myth, brushed aside. But the questions never stopped. Who were they? Where did they go? And why does history pretend they were never here? This is not fantasy. These are documented anomalies. Real places, real objects, real questions still unanswered. So let your mind wander, drift gently through the shadows of forgotten time, as we journey through 50 ancient mysteries that science still can't explain. The forbidden pyramid beneath the Grand Canyon. For years, whispers have echoed about something buried deep beneath the American Southwest, something that wasn't supposed to be there. Not a fossil, not gold, but a pyramid. A structure built in the style of ancient Egypt, found not in Africa, but hidden below the rocky cliffs of the Grand Canyon. Reports of secret cave systems, forbidden expeditions, and sealed Smithsonian documents have surfaced again and again, dismissed by some, but never fully explained. Could an ancient civilization, with knowledge of pyramid construction, have once existed in North America, thousands of years before Columbus? The story sounds impossible, but the deeper you dig, the more unsettling it becomes. There are no tourist signs pointing the way, no official mention in guidebooks, but if you study the old maps, there's a location tucked far from any trail, marked with names like Tower of Ra, Isis Temple, and Osiris Canyon, names of ancient Egyptian gods, in the middle of Arizona. These weren't given by accident. Early explorers who wandered into these areas reported something bizarre, rock structures carved with symbols that didn't match any known Native American languages. Some even described statues, tablet fragments, and underground chambers lined with what they claimed were hieroglyphs. The first public mention came in 1909, when an article appeared in the Arizona Gazette. It claimed that a man named G.E. Kincaid, working with the Smithsonian, had discovered an underground city carved into the canyon walls, accessible only by a nearly vertical drop and a hidden tunnel. Inside, he reportedly found mummified remains, copper weapons, and stone tablets covered in strange markings. The article described long hallways, cross-legged figures resembling monks, and what was described as a large statue of a figure seated with crossed arms, distinctly non-native in appearance. Kincaid said the place looked more like something you'd expect to find beneath the sands of Egypt. Now here's where things get strange. After the article was published, no follow-up story ever ran. Kincaid disappeared from public record. The Smithsonian denied any knowledge of the expedition, and to this day the exact location of the site, if it exists, remains restricted airspace. You can't hike there, you can't fly a drone over it. No one will explain why. Skeptics argue the whole thing was likely fabricated, a tall tale designed to sell newspapers. But others believe there's far more to this. Some researchers say the original site described in the 1909 article is consistent with stories told by the Hopi people, who speak of ancestral beings known as the Ant People, figures who lived underground and helped humanity survive a great global catastrophe long ago. The Hopi say these underground dwellers were not just myth, they were real, and their cities still lie buried beneath the earth. Satellite images have also revealed strange inconsistencies in the Grand Canyon's topography, flat geometric plains that look unnatural, and symmetrical ridges that some believe could be the remains of a weathered structure buried under layers of sediment and time. Of course, erosion can do strange things, but patterns this precise are rare, and they're located right where the original article claimed the underground chambers were found. And here's something else. Over the decades, multiple amateur explorers have reported finding sealed-off cave entrances in the area. Some have even claimed to reach partially collapsed tunnels, only to be turned away by park rangers or military personnel. Why such secrecy over a part of the canyon officially labeled as unremarkable? And what about the names on those cliffs? Why would early cartographers use Egyptian names if nothing Egyptian was ever found there? Were they inspired by something they saw, or something they were told to keep quiet about? Over the years, several Freedom of Information requests have been filed with the Smithsonian and the U.S. Park Service. All have been either denied or returned with no relevant records found. The official stance is that the 1909 article was a fabrication, but no one can explain the consistent sightings, the restricted airspace, or the physical terrain anomalies. The idea of an ancient Egyptian or pre-Egyptian civilization crossing oceans thousands of years ago seems hard to believe. And yet, ancient maritime maps, Egyptian artifacts found in the Americas, and genetic links between Old World and New World populations continue to challenge our understanding of ancient migration. What if this wasn't an isolated outpost, but a forgotten chapter in human history? A civilization erased, not by time, but by design. Maybe the deeper story isn't just about what was found, but about what was buried again, hidden, discredited, covered up. And if that's the case, how many more ancient mysteries lie just beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered? The silent stones of Nan Madol. They say history is written by the victors, but what about the parts that were never written down at all? What about the places that don't fit any of our textbooks? Those ancient ruins scattered across the world with no clear origin, no confirmed builders, and no obvious reason for existing. Deep in the remote Pacific, far from modern civilization, lies a series of crumbling stone platforms, built over water, stacked with megaliths that weigh tons, and arranged in a city-like grid, all of it sitting quietly in the ocean, with no known culture ever claiming credit. This is Nan Madol, and what it's doing there, no one really knows. Located off the eastern shore of Pohnpei in Micronesia, Nan Madol looks like it came from another world. Over 100 man-made islets form a pattern, separated by narrow canals, and constructed from black basalt logs, some weighing up to 50 tons. No modern machinery, no written language, no wheels. Yet somehow, this ocean city exists, and it's not just its construction that puzzles scientists, it's the silence around it. No oral tradition explains how it was built. No neighboring cultures claim it. The city doesn't seem to belong to anyone. It just appeared. Archaeologists have theories, but no solid answers. Some say it may have been built as early as 1,000 years ago. Others think it could be far older. Excavations show signs of burial crypts, sacred platforms, and even structures that may have once held royalty, but none of it explains how the stones got there. The basalt used doesn't match the surrounding geology. It had to come from somewhere else, somewhere far. And transporting these megaliths across miles of jungle and open water without modern tools remains completely unexplained. Local legends, however, speak of something stranger. According to Pohnpeian oral history, Nan Madol was built by two brothers sorcerers who flew the stones into place using magic. They came from a distant land and wanted to build a city in honor of the gods. One story says the brothers used a giant flying dragon to carry the stones. Others speak of levitation, of spirits moving the stones through the air. For most, these are just myths, but for those who stand in Nan Madol today, staring at 50-ton rocks, balanced like children's blocks over ocean water, the legends start to feel strangely plausible. It's not just the mystery of how Nan Madol was built, it's also what happened afterward. For a city that likely housed elites, priests, and sacred rituals, it was completely abandoned. No war, no fire, no invasion. It was just left behind, reclaimed by vines and silence. The canals filled with silt. The walls were slowly swallowed by the jungle, and no one ever moved in to take it back. Even today, locals won't go near it after dark. They believe the ruins are cursed. Fishermen avoid casting their nets near the stones. Some even say strange lights appear above the islets at night, dancing between the towers of stone, as if something ancient is still watching over them. Whether these stories are superstition or something more, they add another layer of eeriness to a place already shrouded in the unknown. Satellite images of Nan Madol reveal a complex design, unlike anything else found in the Pacific Islands. It doesn't match the architecture of Polynesia, Melanesia, or Micronesia. It's something separate, something unique. Some researchers have proposed that Nan Madol may be the last surviving outpost of a lost culture. Some even whisper the name Lemuria, or Mu, referring to long-lost continents said to have sunk beneath the ocean. These are fringe theories, of course, but when faced with ruins that have no clear builder, no known purpose, and no rational explanation for their construction, people start to wonder, was Nan Madol a ceremonial center, a seat of ancient power, a religious complex, or was it something else entirely? An outpost, perhaps, from a civilization we've yet to fully uncover. Some historians have pointed out that Nan Madol shares certain megalithic traits with other ancient sites halfway around the world, like the precision-cut stones of Pumapunku in Bolivia, or the water-integrated layout of ancient Angkor in Cambodia. Could there have been a forgotten maritime culture that traveled across oceans, leaving behind traces of its presence in places that make no sense today? Of course, mainstream archaeologists urge caution. They warn against overreaching and pulling together unrelated dots. But even the most grounded researchers admit that Nan Madol doesn't fit comfortably into any known timeline. It stands alone, both geographically and historically, and the deeper they dig, the less they find that helps explain it. Some researchers believe Nan Madol may hide even more beneath the water. Sonar scans suggest submerged structures extending beyond the visible ruins. These are difficult to access, and excavation is limited, but the possibility remains. What we see may only be a small part of something much larger. What lies beneath may tell the real story. For now, Nan Madol remains one of the most quietly compelling mysteries of the ancient world. No treasure has been found, no scrolls, no inscriptions, just stone, towering, silent, immovable stone, set in place by hands we can't name, for reasons we can't fully grasp. And maybe that's what makes it so powerful. It's not just that we don't know, it's that we've stopped even pretending we do. So if you're drifting off now, picture the Pacific waves lapping against ancient black stone, the calls of distant seabirds echoing off walls that haven't heard voices in centuries. Let your thoughts settle among the canals of Nan Madol, where time itself seems to pause, and mysteries sleep just below the surface, waiting but never explaining. The tomb, with no name. It doesn't appear on most maps. In fact, for decades, no one knew it even existed. Hidden beneath layers of desert sand in the southern reaches of modern-day Jordan, far from Petra's tourist trails, a deep chamber was uncovered purely by accident. A flash flood in the 1990s exposed part of a collapsed stone roof, drawing the attention of a local shepherd. When researchers finally arrived weeks later, they discovered what looked like an ancient tomb, but one unlike anything they had ever seen before. There was no name on the entrance, no inscription, no indication of who had been buried here, and yet everything inside spoke of immense power. Giant stone blocks sealed a chamber so well that the air inside hadn't been disturbed in over 1,000 years. Within, they found 3 stone sarcophagi, arranged in a triangle, all perfectly aligned to the position of the rising sun during the winter solstice. But none of the sarcophagi had bodies. No bones, no ashes, just sealed, empty containers, and symbols. Strange carvings ran across the walls. Some resembled Nabatean writing, others more closely mirrored Hittite markings, but none were entirely readable. Researchers from different fields couldn't agree if this site was a burial chamber, a ceremonial chamber, or something else entirely. What puzzled them even more was what lay directly beneath the central sarcophagus, a circular shaft, narrow, precisely cut, descending nearly 80 feet straight into the limestone bedrock. What was at the bottom was not natural, a room round smooth, completely sealed. It didn't match the architecture of anything else in the area. No door, no air vents, no decorations, just cold, perfect stone. And in the center, a metal sphere, almost featureless, about the size of a human head. When researchers first tried to touch it, their instruments failed, batteries died, cameras glitched, and most strangely, the sphere refused to move. Not by hands, not by machines. It didn't budge at all, Some believe it's not meant to be moved. Speculation spread fast once the discovery reached academic circles. Some claimed the tomb predates known civilizations in the area. Others argued it was part of a forgotten priesthood or a now-lost culture that worshipped the sky. A few even proposed that the tomb was symbolic, that the 3 empty coffins represented deities or celestial guardians, and that the metal sphere was some kind of soul vessel placed at the center of their imagined triangle. But the real questions remain unanswered. Who built it? Why was it hidden so deep in the desert, with no markings or records? And most of all, what is the sphere? The Jordanian government eventually restricted access to the site. Reports stopped. Satellite images show little more than sand dunes now. But for those who were there, who stood in that cold underground room staring at a sphere that seemed to resist the modern world, the mystery never left them. Some say the site isn't empty anymore, that someone or something is watching it, waiting. The hidden knowledge of Piri Reis. It wasn't supposed to exist, not with that level of precision, not in 1513, and not on gazelle skin. But there it was, an old fragment of a map that seemed to know things lost to time. Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis claimed he had copied it from older sources. What sources? He never said. He only hinted that some came from the time of Alexander the Great. Others, he claimed, were from maps no longer in circulation, passed down through secret hands. For centuries, the map sat ignored, its value unrecognized. It wasn't until the 20th century that it caught the eye of modern historians. That's when things became difficult to explain. The map showed South America clearly and correctly at a time when many European powers still didn't fully understand the continent's shape. But that wasn't the strangest part. Along the bottom edge of the map was something else. A landmass, jagged, detailed, iced over. It looked exactly like the northern coast of Antarctica. But this map was made in 1513. Antarctica wasn't even officially discovered until over 300 years later. Worse yet, the coastline on the Piri Reis map didn't match modern Antarctica. It matched the land under the ice. Scientists from the U.S. Air Force studied it in 1960 and concluded that the details resembled seismic surveys done much later using modern technology. But how could a 16th century map show an ice-free Antarctica when that part of the continent hasn't been exposed for thousands of years? That single question changed everything. If the coast was mapped when it was still free of ice, that would mean some advanced culture had explored Antarctica long before our recorded civilizations existed, before the Roman Empire, before the pyramids, before written language. Which begs the question, who drew the original map? Some say it was Atlantis. Others suggest it was survivors of a forgotten civilization wiped out in a cataclysm we no longer remember. Piri Reis himself never claimed to understand what he had in his possession. He only knew the knowledge was older than him. Much older. What makes this story even more mysterious is what happened after the discovery. Several portions of the map have vanished, literally gone, lost from archives. And other old maps, strangely similar to the Piri Reis chart, have surfaced in private collections with no record of who owned them before. They all seem to show the same thing. Lands that shouldn't be known too early. Rivers beneath deserts. Mountain ranges buried in ice. The kind of detail that shouldn't be possible without aerial or satellite views. Could it be that someone in the ancient world had that view? Could they have mapped the earth from above? And if they did, where did they go? Why does Piri Reis' map exist at all? Why did he hint at maps older than any known library? And most of all, what other fragments are still hidden out there? Maybe this map wasn't a mistake. Maybe it wasn't lost. Maybe someone wanted us to find it. But only part of it. The rest, it seems, is still waiting. The vanishing labyrinth beneath Lake Van. Lake Van, nestled high in the eastern mountains of Turkey, has long been surrounded by whispers, some ancient, others recent, all strangely consistent. Though its surface remains serene, especially during the long, windless days of late summer, Researchers over the past few decades have uncovered clues suggesting that something far older than any local legend lies beneath its waters. In 2017, a team of divers and scientists from Van Chu Yale University reported finding an enormous submerged structure near the lake's western shore. What they described wasn't the remains of a shipwreck or sunken settlement, but the remnants of what appeared to be a man-made stone wall measuring over 3,000 meters in length. The scale alone was staggering. Made of cut volcanic stone and covered in thick aquatic silt, the structure didn't resemble any known architectural tradition from the region. This wouldn't have been surprising if not for one crucial fact. There are no historical records of any city or fortress ever existing beneath the lake. In fact, there is no written account, no local mythology, and no ancient map that even hints at the possibility of a grand structure being swallowed by water here. What makes this mystery particularly strange is the age of the lake itself. Scientists believe Lake Van is over 600,000 years old, and its high salinity means it has had few fluctuations in water level across millennia. This challenges any theory that a city was built and later submerged due to flooding. So if the structure was always underwater, then who built it, and why? Further complicating matters, some divers who ventured deeper reported what they claimed were narrow passageways, almost like corridors carved into the stone and chambers they couldn't fully explore due to sediment and darkness. Some even described carvings on the walls, worn nearly smooth but still bearing the unmistakable look of geometric symbols. No translation, of course, has ever been proposed. In one instance, a diver claimed to have followed a tunnel-like pathway that curved downward before abruptly ending in a sheer vertical shaft. Whether it was a collapsed passage or the intended terminus remains unknown. But his report was clear: this wasn't a natural cave. The layout, he said, was too intentional. Curiously, the region surrounding Lake Van has long been associated with ancient kingdoms, such as the Urartians, who once dominated this part of Anatolia. The Urartians were known for their stone fortresses and impressive engineering, but even their oldest constructions date only as far back as the 9th century BCE. The submerged structure seems far older, perhaps thousands of years beyond even the earliest Urartian walls. Carbon dating from organic material trapped in the silt on the lakebed gave conflicting results, ranging anywhere between 2,800 to over 14,000 years. The wide margin made it difficult for archaeologists to draw definitive conclusions. However, several researchers proposed a controversial theory that this structure may belong to a forgotten civilization that predates Mesopotamia entirely. A culture that built in secret, beneath the surface, possibly for ritualistic or protective reasons. One idea suggests that the people of this lost civilization may have chosen to build directly within the lake, using temporary water-diverting techniques, then abandoning the structure once their purpose was fulfilled. If this is true, it raises deeper questions: what were they protecting, and from whom? Stranger still are the quiet mentions in regional folklore. Though no mainstream myth directly references an underwater city in Lake Van, some local Kurdish tribes speak of hidden stone roads beneath the mountains and drowned halls where no light reaches. These phrases have often been interpreted as metaphorical, but in light of these discoveries, researchers are revisiting the possibility that they contain fragmented memories of a real ancient event. Attempts to mount large-scale underwater excavation efforts have faced strange obstacles. Funding gets delayed. Equipment malfunctions. One expedition in 2020 had to be cancelled after a series of unexplained power failures and a rare seasonal alga bloom that turned the western water cloudy and unusable for diving. To this day, only a small portion of the underwater structure has been surveyed. There's no official acknowledgement of its origin, and many institutions refuse to categorize it as a legitimate archaeological site. But those who have seen it firsthand continue to believe that Lake Van holds more than just stones. It holds the traces of something deliberate, something built by a people we no longer remember, a civilization whose story was buried beneath still waters waiting to be rediscovered. The forgotten observatory of Nabta Playa, far out in the Nubian desert, deep in the south of modern-day Egypt, lies a field of flat, sun-blasted earth. At first glance, the place appears empty. No towering monuments, no sweeping ruins, just open land, dotted with dark stone. But if you look closely, you'll notice something unusual. Clusters of megalithic stones arranged in circular patterns, like a crude calendar, etched into the desert itself. This site is called Nabta Playa, and it predates even the pyramids of Giza by thousands of years. Discovered in the 1970s by archaeologists studying prehistoric trade routes, the stones at Nabta Playa seemed oddly deliberate. Some stood upright in the sand, others formed lines or curves, and a few stood in pairs. But it wasn't until a deeper study in the 1990s that a strange pattern emerged. Many of these stones were aligned with extraordinary astronomical precision. According to researchers, the stone circle at the heart of Nabta Playa was built around 7,000 years ago, long before the rise of pharaohs, writing, or cities. Yet its creators had mapped the sky well enough to mark solstices, star risings, and possibly even long-term astronomical cycles. The layout appeared to track the summer solstice, and some alignments pointed toward the rising of Orion's belt, an asterism later deeply embedded in Egyptian myth. But this civilization, whoever they were, left no writings, no palaces, no dynasties. They appear and vanish in the archaeological record almost like a shadow. This raises a fundamental question: who were they, and how did they know the stars so well? The desert around Nabta Playa wasn't always dry. Thousands of years ago, it was part of a seasonal lake region, teeming with life. Nomadic groups likely gathered there during the rainy season, but the sheer effort involved in hauling and positioning multi-ton stones, without draft animals, pulleys, or wheeled carts, suggests more than just temporary visitors. It suggests a settled people with organized planning and long-term memory. And still, they left no script, no names, no carvings to tell us their story. Even more puzzling are the subterranean structures. Excavations revealed rows of underground stone-lined chambers, carefully constructed and hidden beneath the desert surface. Some scholars believe these were used for ritual or astronomical purposes, while others speculate they may have served as early crypts or repositories of knowledge, now long looted or decayed. The sophistication of the site contrasts sharply with the traditional view of prehistoric African communities as purely nomadic and unsophisticated. Nabta Playa implies the opposite, a people who not only understood their environment, but also sought to map the universe from it. Some researchers have proposed that the builders of Nabta Playa may have been cultural ancestors of the ancient Egyptians themselves, that their practices, beliefs, and celestial observations laid the groundwork for what would become the great dynasties of the Nile. But if that's true, then we are left with another mystery. Why did they disappear? Why does the archaeological trail end so abruptly? There is no evidence of war, no sign of catastrophic flood or fire, just a vanishing. Some theorists suggest climate collapse. When the desert began to dry permanently, it may have scattered the people to more hospitable zones. Others believe their integration into early Nile Valley communities was so complete, their identity simply faded into the cultures that followed. But there's still a deeper layer to this mystery. The idea that such complex sky-based knowledge existed that early challenges timelines. Historians once believed astronomy required settled cities and centuries of observation. Nabta Playa suggests otherwise. It hints at the possibility that prehistoric cultures, far from being primitive, may have understood the cosmos in ways we're only beginning to decode. And it's not just Nabta Playa. Across North Africa, scattered fragments of aligned stones, ancient wells, and prehistoric maps carved into rock suggest a web of lost knowledge. Patterns too faint to read fully, but too clear to ignore. A puzzle missing most of its pieces. No one knows what drove the people of Nabta Playa to measure the sky, or why they went to such great lengths to build their calendar in stone. But the silence of the desert doesn't erase what they left behind. The stones still stand, quietly marking time, and the more we uncover, the more it seems they were never forgotten, just waiting. The hidden stone chambers of New England. Scattered throughout the forests of New England, in states like Vermont, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire, lie small, stone-built chambers. Some are half buried in the earth. Others are hidden under thickets of trees or nestled deep within the hillsides. To the casual hiker, they may look like forgotten root cellars or remnants of colonial farming. But once you step inside, something feels off. These chambers are unlike anything else in the landscape. They are built with massive stone slabs, dry-fitted without mortar, arranged with a precision that seems beyond what early settlers were known for. Some feature carefully angled roofs made of megalithic flat stones weighing several tons. The interiors are often cool, silent, and surprisingly airtight. The deeper you look, the more questions emerge. Many of these stone chambers face the rising sun during the equinoxes or solstices. Light filters through narrow doorways or tiny openings, landing on stone walls or interior features in ways that suggest a purpose, perhaps ceremonial, perhaps astronomical. But here's the mystery. Official records of colonial America make no mention of these structures being built by European settlers. There's no known use for them in farming, no documentation of their construction, and no tools found nearby that would suggest a conventional origin. So who built them? The standard explanation has been that they are root cellars used by early colonists to store food. But root cellars were usually built differently, with wood, not multi-ton slabs. And most weren't buried halfway underground, nor did they require the kind of labor-intensive effort these chambers clearly demanded. In fact, many of the stone chambers are located far from any known colonial homesteads, hidden in places that would make daily use impractical. Adding to the enigma is the sheer number of them. Hundreds of these chambers exist across New England. Some appear in patterns or clusters, as if they were part of a network, and many contain features that resemble megalithic traditions seen in parts of Europe, particularly in places like Ireland, Scotland, and Iberia. Some researchers have proposed a controversial theory that these chambers may predate European colonists entirely, that they might have been built by an unknown culture, possibly even pre-Columbian transatlantic visitors who understood the stars and seasons and had reasons to embed that knowledge in stone. The theory is speculative, but supported by one strange detail. Certain chambers align almost perfectly with solar events, such as the winter solstice sunrise or equinox sunset. These alignments are too precise to be accidental. Inside the chambers, there's often a stillness that feels deliberate. Some contain niches or depressions in the walls, as if meant to hold objects. Others echo faintly when you speak, almost like they were tuned to carry sound. No artifacts have ever been found in situ, just the stones themselves, whispering a story that no one has fully decoded. There's one chamber in Upton, Massachusetts, with a particularly mysterious layout. It features a narrow tunnel-like passage leading into a central chamber capped by a massive circular dome of granite slabs. The entrance faces a solar event. Its acoustics are uncanny. Some call it a New England dolmen, though its true function is unknown. It feels ancient, far older than any nearby structure, and yet its builders remain invisible in the historical record. The enigma is amplified by the fact that no written history exists to explain their construction. Native American oral traditions mention sacred stone sites, but rarely describe underground chambers of this sort. Colonial journals are silent. There are no blueprints, no legends, no claims of ownership. This absence of narrative is perhaps the most haunting part. If these chambers were indeed made by a lost group, what purpose did they serve? Were they burial sites, ceremonial centers, astronomical tools, or shelters? Why build them in secret, in silence, and why has time been so effective in erasing their origin? Some researchers believe the chambers could be remnants of a forgotten knowledge system, one that mapped light, shadow, time, and sound in ways we barely understand, that they were places to observe the cosmos from the earth, blending stone and sky into a kind of ancient logic. Others argue they are simply the result of frontier ingenuity, colonists who, without modern tools, built with what they had. But that explanation begins to fade when you see how much effort, alignment, and symmetry went into a structure no one took credit for. The chambers remain open to the curious. Anyone can visit, but walking into one, especially alone, you may feel a sense of time folding around you, as if the stones are watching, remembering, as if you're trespassing in a story that was never meant to be lost, but somehow was. The forest grows back around them, and snow piles up at their entrances each winter. Yet they endure, quietly resisting explanation, and the more they are studied, the more they ask us to reconsider what we really know about the land beneath our feet. The ancient copper mines of Michigan. In the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, far from the bustle of modern cities, lie the remnants of something baffling. Scattered across the region are over 5,000 ancient copper mining pits. They are carved directly into the bedrock, some buried beneath thick layers of soil and forest, others visible as eerie, moss-covered depressions in the land. What puzzles researchers is not just the sheer number of these mines, but the age, the precision, and the absence of any definitive clue about who dug them. Carbon dating of nearby tools suggests that these mines may have been active as early as 3000 BCE, long before European contact with North America, and before any known Native American culture is thought to have possessed the technology needed to extract metal on such a massive scale. Even more strangely, nearly 500 million pounds of copper appear to have been removed, yet no one knows where that copper went. No massive copper caches have been found in the region. None of the indigenous tribes recorded using copper at that scale or transporting it elsewhere. So, who was taking it, and why? Some suggest that the copper may have been smelted and shipped across the Atlantic by ancient seafarers, perhaps even long before Columbus, the Vikings, or any widely accepted early contact theories. Supporters of this idea point to similar copper tools found in Bronze Age European sites, which contain trace elements matching the mineral signature of Michigan copper. That alone has led to a wave of theories suggesting an ancient transatlantic trade network that operated silently and vanished without a trace. But the mystery deepens. Many of the mining pits contain no advanced tools, no bones, no remnants of settlements. Whoever worked these mines seems to have done so with efficiency and then left without leaving behind a culture, a written record, or any clear story of how they achieved this. It's like a forgotten workforce existed here for centuries and was then swallowed by time. Some historians dismiss these ideas, suggesting that small tribal groups could have collectively mined over generations. But this explanation doesn't satisfy everyone. The logistics of extracting such vast quantities of copper without draft animals, pulleys, or written coordination make that theory difficult to accept. How could so much have been accomplished so quietly? And if ancient people here did manage such feats, why isn't the rest of their civilization just as visible? Adding to the intrigue is Isle Royale, an island in Lake Superior with similarly ancient mining activity. The island is remote and harsh, and yet ancient miners traveled there, season after season, to chip away at copper veins with nothing more than stone hammers. The site shows no signs of long-term settlement, just work, like a mission, as if those involved came here only to extract and transport, then disappeared. There are even whispers of ships found along the Great Lakes with ancient carvings, though none have been officially verified. Local legends also speak of strange people coming from the waters and leaving again, their boats heavy with something precious. Are these just stories, or are they remnants of a memory that refuses to die? To this day, the ancient copper mines of Michigan remain one of the most significant unsolved mysteries of early North American history. The facts are clear. Vast quantities of copper were removed, the technology and workforce remain unidentified, and no one truly knows where the copper ended up. The answers lie buried beneath layers of time, forest, and water, and until someone uncovers them, this mystery will continue to quietly hum beneath the Michigan soil. The disappearance of the Anasazi civilization. In the desert landscapes of the American Southwest, there lies an ancient mystery, the disappearance of the Anasazi people. The Anasazi, or ancient Puebloans, were a complex and advanced civilization that thrived in what is now the Four Corners region of the United States, around 900 to 1300 CE. They built intricate cliff dwellings and massive multi-story buildings made of stone and adobe, some of which are still standing today at sites like Mesa Verde and Chaco Canyon. But despite their impressive achievements, this civilization vanished mysteriously, leaving behind only their abandoned dwellings and their undisturbed artifacts. What happened to the Anasazi? Historians and archaeologists have long speculated, but the answers remain elusive. The clues are scattered across the desert, in the ruins of their once thriving cities, in their pottery, their tools, and even in their advanced agricultural systems that allowed them to farm in the harsh desert environment. However, the cities that once bustled with life were suddenly abandoned around the late 1200s. The stone dwellings in places like Cliff Palace and Longhouse stand frozen in time, eerily empty, with no clear explanation for why their inhabitants left. Some theories suggest that a prolonged drought in the region could have led to crop failures, forcing the Anasazi to abandon their homes in search of more reliable water sources. Evidence of widespread drought has been found in tree rings and other natural records, indicating that the area experienced some of the worst droughts in history during this period. It's possible that the once prosperous agricultural society simply couldn't sustain itself, and the Anasazi were forced to migrate to other areas. But the mystery deepens. There is no evidence of mass graves, and the tools and artifacts left behind suggest that the people left in a hurry but did not seem to suffer a catastrophic event. They simply vanished. What happened to them? Did they move to new areas, or was their departure more deliberate, perhaps even guided by a greater cultural or religious belief? Some historians suggest that the Anasazi were assimilated into neighboring Native American tribes, but no one knows for sure. Adding to the intrigue is the possibility that the Anasazi were the ancestors of modern-day Pueblo peoples. While this connection seems likely, it still doesn't answer why the Anasazi abandoned their elaborate cities and went silent in the historical record. Did they leave these places behind because they felt a connection to something far more ancient? Some local legends suggest that the Anasazi abandoned their homes in search of a spiritual awakening, believing that the earth would change and transform into something unrecognizable. Could there have been a spiritual or religious motivation for their departure, one that was never documented? To this day, the Anasazi remain one of the greatest mysteries of the American Southwest. Despite many theories and much research, no definitive explanation has been found for why such a thriving civilization vanished so abruptly. Was it environmental collapse, a cultural shift, or something far more enigmatic? Whatever the truth, the secrets of the Anasazi still lie hidden in the ancient cliff dwellings and ruins, awaiting discovery. The lost city of the monkey god. Deep in the dense, uncharted jungles of Honduras, a long-lost city lay hidden for centuries, shrouded in legend. Known as the City of the Monkey God, this mysterious place was thought to be a myth until it was discovered in 2015, thanks to modern technology and a bit of luck. But even after its discovery, the full truth about the city remains elusive, raising questions about its origins, purpose, and sudden abandonment. The story begins with the legend of a fabled city in the jungle, a place of immense wealth and power, guarded by giant stone monkeys. This tale was passed down through generations, and explorers had searched for the city for centuries. Many believed it to be a mere fantasy, but a breakthrough came when archaeologists used LiDAR technology, laser scanning from a plane to map the jungle floor beneath the thick canopy. The results were astonishing. Hidden beneath the trees was a sprawling ancient city, complete with monumental structures, plazas, and pyramids. This city, located in the Mosquitia region of Honduras, was believed to have been built by the lost civilization of the pre-Columbian people, possibly a group related to the Maya or a completely unknown culture. Researchers found an advanced urban complex with massive stone platforms and a network of long-forgotten pathways. Yet, despite its grandeur, it appears the city was abandoned long before the Spanish arrived in Central America. What makes the story even stranger is the sheer isolation of the city. For centuries, no one knew it existed, and its discovery in the 21st century has raised more questions than answers. Why was it abandoned? And who exactly built it? Some theories suggest the city was a thriving hub of trade and culture before its residents were struck by a series of natural disasters, like flooding or disease, which may have driven them away. There are also reports of unusual artifacts discovered at the site, such as intricately carved stones and mysterious statues of monkeys, which some believe could be symbols of the city's past rulers or deities. These artifacts suggest that the people of the city had a deep connection to their environment, and perhaps even revered the animals that inhabited the jungle, especially monkeys. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the lost city, however, is the possibility that the people who once lived there were far more advanced than previously thought. The city was not just a small settlement, but a sophisticated urban center that could have influenced surrounding cultures. Could there have been unknown knowledge and technologies in this lost city that could alter our understanding of ancient civilizations? Despite the excitement surrounding the discovery, the city remains elusive. Its location is still secretive, kept from public knowledge to protect the site from looters and treasure hunters. Further exploration has been limited due to the treacherous conditions of the jungle and the dangers posed by wildlife and illness. As a result, much of the city's mysteries remain locked away, waiting to be uncovered. The city of the monkey god continues to haunt the imaginations of archaeologists and historians alike. Was it abandoned due to a cataclysmic event, or did its inhabitants simply vanish into the dense jungle, never to be heard from again? The true nature of this ancient city remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of the world. The stone balls of Costa Rica. Scattered across the lush landscapes of southern Costa Rica lie hundreds of nearly perfect stone spheres, some as small as a grapefruit, others as large as a car. They are carved from solid granodiorite, weighing several tons in some cases. The precision with which these ancient stones were shaped is extraordinary, especially considering they were crafted long before the advent of metal tools or modern technology. Yet to this day, no one truly knows who made them, how they were made, or why they were placed where they were found. These enigmatic stones were first documented in the 1930s, when workers from a banana company began clearing the jungle for plantations. As they bulldozed the forest, they uncovered hundreds of these stone spheres buried in the earth, some grouped together in strange patterns, others lying in isolation. The workers were so puzzled by the spheres that they began to speculate wildly. Some even blew them open with dynamite, hoping to find treasure hidden inside. There was nothing, just solid stone. Archaeologists have since studied over 300 of these spheres, yet much remains unknown. Their size varies widely, and many are almost perfectly round, some with deviations of less than a few millimeters, an astonishing feat for a prehistoric culture. The stones are often placed in geometrical alignments, lines, triangles, and even apparent celestial patterns. Some were found pointing toward mountains or rivers, and a few were aligned with the solstices, yet no written records or oral traditions remain to explain their purpose. The civilization believed to have created the spheres is the Dikis culture, which flourished in the region from around 700 to 1500 CE. But little is known about the Dikis people, and they vanished before Spanish colonization, leaving behind almost no ruins, inscriptions, or clues. These stone balls are among the few remaining pieces of their legacy, and they've become one of the greatest archaeological puzzles in the Americas. The mystery deepens when considering the sheer difficulty of shaping and transporting the stones. Granodiorite is a hard rock, and carving it with stone tools would have taken immense effort and time. The nearest quarries for this material are miles away from many of the sites where the balls were found. How could a pre-industrial society move multi-ton stones over rivers and through thick jungle without the use of wheels, beasts of burden, or roads? Some theories suggest that the spheres were symbols of power or markers for sacred sites. Others propose they represented astronomical knowledge, perhaps a form of ancient observatory or calendar. Some even argue they were designed to communicate messages across generations, encoded in their arrangement. But without any written language or context, these interpretations remain speculation. Over the years, the mystery has invited more fringe ideas. Some claim the stones are remnants of an ancient lost civilization, possibly even evidence of contact with otherworldly beings. Others tie them to Atlantis or other sunken cultures, suggesting the spheres were once part of a forgotten world that has long since vanished beneath the forest. Despite decades of research, the true purpose of the stone balls remains uncertain. They stand silent and unmoving, relics of a forgotten era that continue to defy simple explanation. Unlike many ruins or artifacts that can be studied through inscriptions or architecture, the spheres offer no easy clues, only their perfect shape, their strange placements, and the haunting question, why? As time passes and the jungle slowly reclaims what was once clear land, many of the spheres remain hidden, buried beneath layers of earth and foliage. Others have been moved, lost, or damaged. Yet those that remain still watch over the Costa Rican landscape like quiet guardians of a mystery no one has fully solved. The Ubaid lizard figurines. In the quiet, shifting sands of southern Mesopotamia, where civilization itself is said to have begun, archaeologists unearthed something that didn't quite fit the timeline of human history. In a place where ancient cities like Ur and Eridu rose and fell, and where some of the oldest writing and temple systems emerged, researchers found strange figurines unlike anything else. These weren't statues of gods, kings, or animals. They were humanoid figures, with elongated heads, slit-like eyes, and unmistakably reptilian features. These artifacts, known today as the Ubaid lizard figurines, date back over 7,000 years, far earlier than the dynastic Sumerians, and well before any of the Mesopotamian empires that followed. The figurines were first discovered in the early 20th century at multiple Ubaid culture sites, such as Tel al-Ubaid, Ur, and Eridu. But what truly unsettled scholars wasn't just their alien-like appearance, it was what the figures were depicted doing. Some of the statues are holding infants, cradling them as if in a nurturing pose. Others are seated, seemingly engaged in acts of authority or ritual. A few even wear helmets or ornate clothing, suggesting not just physical form, but roles, leaders, priests, perhaps even deities. The craftsmanship is consistent across sites and across decades of excavation, but the symbolism remains elusive. Who were these figures supposed to represent? Were they gods imagined with reptilian characteristics? Were they symbolic representations of something long forgotten? Or are they relics of a belief system so alien to our own that we cannot begin to interpret it? There is no written record to explain them. The Ubaid culture existed before cuneiform writing was developed. Their way of life can only be understood through their tools, pottery, and settlements, none of which suggest anything like the reptilian figures. Most artifacts from that period are functional, even mundane: clay pots, grinding stones, fishing tools. But then come these enigmatic statues, clearly sculpted with purpose and care. The figures raise further questions because of how advanced they are for their time. The Ubaid people weren't known for elaborate sculptures or large-scale religious structures. And yet, these figurines show attention to detail, symmetry, and artistic nuance rarely seen in Neolithic artifacts. They appear to belong to a tradition, perhaps even a mythology, but one that has left no trace in the textual record. Some archaeologists argue that the lizard-like features are simply stylized or symbolic, representing fertility, rebirth, or perhaps transformation. Reptiles shed their skin, after all, and in many ancient cultures, this act was tied to life cycles and renewal. But this doesn't explain the helmets, staffs, or regal postures of many figurines. These elements suggest hierarchy and identity, not just metaphor. Alternative theorists, as expected, have offered more sensational explanations. Some believe the Ubaid lizard figures point to ancient encounters with beings not of this earth, visitors, perhaps, who came in the distant past and were remembered in clay. This hypothesis is of course highly controversial and unsupported by mainstream archaeology, but it persists because the figurines remain so out of place, so unlike anything else from the time, that even grounded interpretations feel incomplete. Adding to the mystery is the fact that the figurines are not found in large numbers. Only a few dozen have been recovered, and they are often found buried within domestic sites, not temples or graves. Were they household icons, tools for ritual, or preserved remnants of a disappearing tradition? The context doesn't offer clear answers. As more Ubaid sites are lost to time, conflict and development, the chances of uncovering the full story behind these lizard-like statues diminish. And yet, their discovery reminds us that history is full of fragments, pieces that do not always fit neatly together. Some parts of our past may always remain out of reach, separated not just by time, but by meaning. The Ubaid lizard figurines are one of those fragments. Silent, still, and unsettling, they sit in museum glass cases and excavation archives, watching us as we try to understand a civilization that has long since faded into the dust. The underground city of Derinkuyu, beneath the quiet hills of Cappadocia, Turkey, a massive secret lay hidden for centuries. It wasn't a buried temple or a collapsed ruin. It was an entire city, a city beneath a city, and not just a few rooms carved into stone, but a vast, complex underground world capable of sheltering thousands of people. Its discovery raised more questions than answers. Who built this subterranean labyrinth? How did they create it without modern tools? And most intriguingly, what were they hiding from? This place is known today as Derinkuyu, and it remains one of the most astonishing ancient mysteries ever uncovered. It wasn't discovered by a team of archaeologists or in a carefully planned excavation. In 1963, a man renovating his home accidentally broke through a wall and found an entire hidden room behind it. That led to tunnels, which led to chambers, which kept leading deeper and deeper, until what he had found was revealed to be a sprawling, multi-level underground city that descended at least 18 stories into the earth. Derinkuyu is unlike anything else from its time. The city contains air shafts, kitchens, stables, living quarters, communal rooms, wells, even places of worship and schools, all underground. Archaeologists estimate that it could have supported as many as 20,000 people for months at a time. But why would anyone build such a thing? And more importantly, why would an entire population choose to live underground? One theory suggests it was a shelter, used during times of war or invasion. The region of Cappadocia has a long history of conflict, and the underground city might have provided refuge from raiders or foreign armies. But the engineering of Derinkuyu is too advanced, too permanent, to suggest it was built solely for temporary hiding. The tunnels are deliberately designed to confuse invaders, with narrow passageways, traps, and large circular stone doors that could be rolled into place from the inside. These are defensive features, yes, but they also point to an understanding of human psychology, of how to manage fear in close quarters, underground, without sunlight. And then there's the depth. Going 60 meters below the surface isn't something done on a whim. The deeper one descends, the more sophisticated the architecture becomes. Ventilation shafts bring in fresh air from the surface, and the wells were protected to avoid poisoning. The entire city was engineered for long-term survival, not just hiding. That level of planning, in a time long before electricity or machinery, is baffling. Scholars generally place the construction of Derinkuyu during the 8th or 7th century BCE, possibly earlier, with later expansions and uses by early Christians fleeing Roman persecution. But even this is uncertain. There are no records that explain who first carved out the stone, or why. Some believe it may have existed long before the Christians arrived, perhaps built by the Phrygians, Hittites, or even an unknown prehistorical culture. The soft volcanic rock of the region made it easier to carve into, but also made the structures vulnerable. Yet Derinkuyu has stood the test of time, even through earthquakes. The structural integrity of this underground city suggests not just trial and error, but advanced planning and understanding of rock behavior. What adds to the mystery is that Derinkuyu is not alone. There are dozens of other underground cities throughout Cappadocia, some believed to be connected by hidden tunnels, though many of them remain unexplored. Was there an entire network beneath the region, a shadow civilization living beneath the Earth's surface? There are alternative theories too, some quite outlandish. A few suggest the city was built to hide from environmental catastrophes, perhaps even solar radiation or falling debris from the sky. Others speculate it was constructed as a last refuge after some kind of global disaster, or even that it's linked to a forgotten civilization, with knowledge lost to time. These ideas remain fringe, but they speak to the deep unease the city provokes. It's not just the craftsmanship, it's the silence around it. There are no inscriptions, no clear stories, no names of rulers or architects, just long quiet tunnels, and the remains of a world that once thrived in complete darkness. When you stand at the entrance of Durinkyu and peer into the narrow staircase that spirals downward, you feel something ancient and unsettling. It's not just a city, it's a message carved in stone by people we cannot name, for reasons we do not fully understand. Whatever they were preparing for, they did so with urgency and purpose. And though they're long gone, the mystery of Durinkyu remains buried with them, quiet, deep, and waiting. The forgotten walls of Sacsayhuaman. High above the ancient city of Cusco, in Peru, lies a place that baffles scientists, archaeologists, and engineers alike. A fortress-like structure made of massive stone blocks that interlock so precisely, not even a sheet of paper can slide between them. This is Sacsayhuaman. Its name might be hard to pronounce, but its mystery runs even deeper than its pronunciation suggests. Sacsayhuaman is not just another ruin. It is a riddle carved in stone. The walls stretch out in long zigzag patterns, with each block weighing dozens, sometimes hundreds, of tons. But these stones weren't simply stacked. Each one was meticulously shaped to fit perfectly with the surrounding blocks, some with as many as 12 or more angles, all without mortar. The result is so seamless that the walls have withstood centuries of earthquakes and weathering without collapsing. The question is how. The Inca are often credited with constructing Sacsayhuaman, but even they seem to regard the site with reverence, almost as if it predated them. Many believe the Inca expanded or utilized the site rather than built it entirely from scratch. If that's true, who built the original structure? And how did they manage to transport and shape stones of such immense size? One of the largest blocks used at Sacsayhuaman weighs an estimated 120 tons. That's more than 240,000 pounds. The quarries believed to have provided the stone are located miles away, across valleys and hills, and the Andes are no gentle landscape. There are no records of wheels or iron tools, and yet these ancient builders managed to haul and shape stone with precision that we struggle to explain even with today's technology. Some researchers suggest that the builders used a form of stone softening technique, an idea not proven, but based on Incan legends that speak of plant extracts that could make stone malleable. Others speculate that the blocks were not moved traditionally, but somehow formed or melted into place, a controversial theory, yet one that reflects just how unexplained the construction remains. Then there's the purpose of the site. Traditional theories describe Sacsayhuaman as a fortress, a military stronghold to defend Cusco, the capital of the Inca Empire. Its elevated location and thick walls support this, but other features tell a different story. Within the complex, there are strange carved shapes, ceremonial platforms, underground chambers, and remnants of water channels. Some of these appear to align with celestial events, hinting that this may have been a sacred site, a place not of war, but of ritual. Another layer of the mystery lies in its shape. From the air, the layout of Sacsayhuaman resembles the head of a puma, with Cusco forming the body. The puma was a sacred animal to the Inca, and this symbolic layout may not be coincidence. Could it be that Sacsayhuaman was designed as part of a larger city-wide spiritual plan? If so, the precision required for such planning, without aerial views or satellite tools, is staggering. Despite extensive studies, there is no definitive explanation for how the walls of Sacsayhuaman were constructed with such perfection. The technology, the labor force, the planning, it all seems to surpass what we associate with the time period. And yet the ruins are real, undeniable, and still standing after hundreds of years. What we're left with is not just a marvel of engineering, but a silent monument to a kind of knowledge that appears to be lost. The people who built Sacsayhuaman didn't just move mountains, they shaped them, and they left behind no instruction manual, no blueprints, no inscriptions telling us how or why. Only stone, silent, massive, immovable stone. We often imagine ancient people as primitive, struggling to survive. But Sacsayhuaman tells a different story. It hints at intelligence, mastery, and vision, at something we don't fully understand. A knowledge that perhaps wasn't lost, but hidden, just waiting to be rediscovered. The stone pyramids beneath the Sea of Yonaguni. Off the southern coast of Japan, near the remote island of Yonaguni, lies something that shouldn't exist. Submerged beneath the waves are massive stone formations, terraces, steps, pillars, and platforms, so geometrically shaped that many believe they couldn't have formed naturally. To this day, no one can agree whether the Yonaguni monument is a natural formation, an ancient structure, or a forgotten piece of history deliberately buried by time and tide. Discovered by a local diver in 1986, the site was initially thought to be just an interesting rock formation. But as divers and scientists explored it further, the questions began to pile up. The structure appears to be a massive stone complex, possibly a stepped pyramid, stretching nearly 500 feet in length and rising some 90 feet from the seafloor. It features flat plains, sharp right angles, and what look like deliberate carvings and pathways. To some, it looks unmistakably man-made. Wide steps ascend symmetrically. Carved channels cut across stone blocks. There are what appear to be doorways, pillars, and even a large stage area. Everything is cut from the same type of sandstone and appears interconnected, not simply a cluster of random boulders. One of the most debated features is a huge triangular formation referred to as the Stone Gate, a massive arch-like structure that looks almost too precise to be a coincidence. But here's where the mystery deepens. The entire structure lies underwater at a depth that would have been well above sea level more than 10,000 years ago, long before any known civilization in that part of the world was capable of constructing anything on that scale. If the Yonaguni monument is artificial, it may date back to a time before the end of the last ice age. That would rewrite the timeline of human history. Some researchers, like marine geologist Masafiki Kimura, believe that the Yonaguni site was a city, a lost civilization submerged by rising seas after the last glacial melt. He has claimed to have identified roads, walls, staircases, and even inscriptions on the rock faces. His critics argue otherwise, insisting that the formations are the result of natural fracturing caused by tectonic activity and the layering of sedimentary rock. Still, there are other signs that suggest human involvement. Large anchor stones with bored holes, similar to those used in ancient Japan, have been found nearby. Unusual tools and pottery fragments have also been recovered from the vicinity, though critics question whether these are directly related to the underwater site or just happen to be nearby. The real problem is the lack of direct evidence. There are no bones, no confirmed artifacts embedded in the structure, no inscriptions that clearly define its purpose. Just immense, silent stone shapes under the sea, resisting interpretation. If Yonaguni is a sunken city, it changes everything. It means a highly organized, skilled civilization existed in East Asia thousands of years before any recorded culture in the region. It means people at that time possessed advanced knowledge of architecture, planning, and construction. It could point to an entire chapter of human history that has been drowned and forgotten. Some theorists even suggest a connection to the lost continent of Mus or ancient maritime empires, ideas considered fringe by mainstream archaeology, yet strangely compelling when looking at Yonaguni's impossible shapes. Today, the site remains controversial. Divers continue to explore it. Cameras continue to capture its baffling geometry, but the sea keeps its secrets well. Every now and then, new features are found, another step, another angle, another unnatural-looking cut, and each discovery adds more weight to the mystery rather than resolving it. Yonaguni is not just a sunken formation, it's a question lying in still water, waiting to be answered. Is it nature? Is it a monument? Or is it a whisper from an ancient civilization that vanished before history even began? One thing is certain, the sea has a memory longer than ours, and sometimes when the light hits the stone just right, it feels like you're staring into a chapter of human history no one was meant to remember. The lost labyrinth, beneath the sands of Hawara, in the dry, sun-scorched plains of Egypt's Fayum region, lies the quiet ruin of a place once whispered about by ancient historians. Most tourists today pass it by without a second glance, unaware that they may be walking over one of the greatest architectural wonders ever described in the ancient world. What now appears to be little more than eroded stones and buried mounds was once referred to as the Labyrinth of Egypt, a vast subterranean complex beneath the sands of Hawara, one so elaborate that even Herodotus, the Greek historian, claimed it surpassed even the pyramids in grandeur. What makes this mystery endure through time is not just the claim that the labyrinth once existed, but that it might still lie hidden beneath the earth, untouched and unexplored. Herodotus described its vast halls, 3,000 chambers, half above ground, half below, and long corridors lined with towering stone columns. Other ancient authors, like Strabo and Pliny the Elder, also recorded tales of the labyrinth, describing underground vaults and secret chambers that were said to contain the tombs of Egyptian kings and sacred crocodiles. The curiosity deepens when you realize that these aren't just myths passed down through stories. In 2008, a team of Belgian and Egyptian researchers, using ground-penetrating radar, announced something astonishing. Beneath the surface of the sand, in the very location Herodotus identified thousands of years ago, they found geometric anomalies, structures that appeared artificial in shape and layout, running deep and wide beneath the modern ruins. Their radar scans revealed what could be vast halls, corridors, and walled chambers. Yet, despite this evidence, the site was never fully excavated. Instead, it was quietly sealed and closed off. Why would such a significant finding be hidden from the public? Was it to preserve what might lie beneath, or was something uncovered that wasn't meant to be shared? Some believe that the labyrinth may hold ancient texts or relics that predate known Egyptian history. Others suspect that if fully excavated, the labyrinth could redefine what we understand about ancient engineering, and perhaps about the civilization that built it. The structure, if real, would have been a marvel of planning and knowledge, carved directly into bedrock, with an advanced understanding of acoustics, ventilation, and load-bearing design. It would require not only incredible manpower, but technologies we associate with much later periods. Could it be that the builders of the labyrinth had access to knowledge we've since forgotten? There's also the mystery of its purpose. Some researchers argue it was more than a tomb or a palace. Its scale, its complexity, and its deliberate concealment suggest something ritualistic, possibly a place for initiation, or even a kind of archive built to last millennia. Herodotus himself claimed that what he saw was overwhelming, corridors so vast and confusing that no one could pass through without a guide. If that's true, what knowledge was stored there, and why is no one allowed to go down and look? Curiously, some of the fragments retrieved from the area hint at languages and symbols not widely recognized in conventional Egyptian texts. Could it be that the labyrinth preserved remnants of an even earlier culture, one that existed before dynastic Egypt, and passed its knowledge along through stone and geometry? As it stands today, the labyrinth beneath Hawara remains inaccessible. The structures revealed by the radar surveys are still buried. Despite calls from the academic and archaeological community to reopen the site, no further excavations have been publicly announced, and so, this grand monument, spoken of for over 2,000 years, waits silently under the desert. Visitors walk by, unaware. The winds blow dust across the ruins, erasing footprints, but deep below, perhaps in perfect silence, vast stone corridors still wait, filled with secrets, waiting to be known again, or perhaps never meant to be disturbed. The Copper Scroll and the Lost Treasures of the Desert. Among the many ancient texts discovered near the Dead Sea, one scroll stands out, not for its spiritual insight or poetic verses, but for what it claims to be a treasure map. Unlike the other Dead Sea Scrolls, which were written on parchment or papyrus and focus mostly on religious themes, this one is made entirely of metal, pure copper. And it doesn't talk about divine laws or ancient prophets. It lists locations, it gives measurements, and it speaks of an unimaginable wealth hidden across the desert landscape. The copper scroll was found in 1952, rolled tightly and buried in Cave 3 near Qumran. Its surface was so corroded that it had to be cut into pieces just to be read. What it revealed stunned scholars. Over 60 different hiding places, each supposedly containing massive stores of gold, silver, and valuable artifacts, altogether worth billions by today's standards. Some entries are oddly specific. In the pillar opposite the eastern entrance, in a niche, lies 42 talents of silver. Others are more cryptic, referencing places that no longer seem to exist. Unlike the other Dead Sea Scrolls, this one doesn't sound allegorical or religious. It's written in a straightforward, factual tone, almost like someone from ancient times urgently recorded the precise coordinates of real caches. But here's the mystery. No such treasures have ever been found. Not one. Many theories have formed around this enigma. Some believe the scroll contains real information, hidden stashes created by Jewish priests trying to protect sacred artifacts from Roman invaders during the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD. Others think the locations mentioned refer to secret underground chambers, perhaps even ones created before the Temple era, suggesting the scroll records something far older than the scholars admit. The language used in the copper scroll is also peculiar. It's slightly different from the style found in other scrolls, suggesting it might have been authored by a different group, perhaps one with unique knowledge, or a different purpose altogether. Some even argue that the treasures listed are symbolic, or encoded with a system we still haven't cracked. But then why use copper? Something that takes effort and skill to inscribe, if the message wasn't meant to last, or wasn't meant to be practical. Over the decades, several adventurers, scholars, and treasure hunters have tried to follow the scroll's instructions. Most returned empty-handed. Others have disappeared into the remote terrain, chasing a dream buried under centuries of sand. Yet, the scroll's tone doesn't suggest myth or metaphor. It reads more like a record, a catalog of storage units, each described with a calm certainty that makes it hard to dismiss. One possibility that often gets overlooked is that the locations once existed, but the terrain has shifted. Earthquakes, floods, erosion, or even ancient sabotage could have hidden the entrances beyond recognition. If so, the treasure might still be there, just out of reach. Or perhaps it was already taken, long ago, by someone who understood the map and knew the landscape well before it changed. Then there's the more unsettling possibility that the scroll was never meant for public eyes. It may have been a secret document, meant only for a small inner circle, keepers of a legacy too dangerous or too powerful to be widely known. If that's true, revealing it might explain why no major archaeological institution has seriously attempted to excavate the sites mentioned in the scroll. Could there be something about the copper scroll that goes beyond treasure? Something that challenges accepted history, or touches on powers we still don't fully understand? In the silence of the cave where it was found, the copper fragments now sit, cold metallic echoes of a time when knowledge and wealth were buried side by side, under the pressure of survival and secrecy. Whether the scroll points to a real fortune, a forgotten chapter of history, or a deeper truth lost to time, no one can say for sure. And yet the map remains, waiting for someone with just the right knowledge, just the right perspective, to see what no one else has seen. Through 3,000 rooms, lost to time, Egypt's vanished labyrinth. Far from the Great Pyramids and the Sphinx that dominate Egypt's popular imagination, there is a lesser-known enigma, one that ancient writers described with awe and disbelief, and yet today barely exists in modern consciousness. They called it the labyrinth. Not a myth, not a symbol, but a real massive stone structure said to have existed at Hawara, near the Fayum oasis, south of Cairo. What makes the labyrinth so mysterious is not just its scale or complexity, it's that multiple credible ancient sources insist they saw it with their own eyes. Herodotus, the Greek historian who visited in the 5th century BCE, wrote that the structure was more impressive than all the pyramids combined. He claimed it had 3,000 rooms, 1,500 above ground and 1,500 below, connected by winding passages, blind corridors, and hidden chambers. The lower level, he wrote, was forbidden to most and contained the tombs of ancient kings and sacred crocodiles. Centuries later, other visitors, like Strabo and Diodorus Siculus, echoed his account. They described halls supported by countless columns, ceilings made of single slabs of stone, and walls covered in intricate carvings. These weren't vague myths. They were architectural reports from people who claimed to have seen the labyrinth themselves. Yet today, almost nothing remains. Modern archaeologists know of the site at Hawara. In the late 1800s, British archaeologist Flinders Petrie excavated the area and found scattered remains of colossal stones, pillars, and foundations, but not the labyrinth itself. Petrie concluded that the structure had existed but had been destroyed, its stones taken by later civilizations for use in other buildings. If true, then a massive feat of ancient engineering, the greatest complex ever built in Egypt according to some, was dismantled and erased. But here's where the mystery deepens. While Petrie believed the visible part of the labyrinth was gone, he also hinted that the subterranean level might still exist, buried beneath layers of debris and sand. Yet, for over a century, little serious effort has gone into exploring what lies beneath Hawara. Bureaucratic restrictions, shifting political climates, and logistical difficulties have kept modern tools, like ground-penetrating radar, from thoroughly scanning the site, at least not in the public eye. Some independent researchers and fringe archaeologists claim they've done private surveys, which reveal massive symmetrical structures underground, too regular and organized to be natural formations. But without formal excavation, these findings remain speculative. Still, the scale of what ancient writers described leaves us wondering if even a fraction of it lies beneath the sand. What secrets could it hold? What was the purpose of such an enormous complex? Was it administrative, a central archive of Egypt's dynasties, a religious center, perhaps used for rituals lost to time, or something else, something designed not for the living, but for the afterlife? One detail from Herodotus stands out. He claimed the labyrinth was so confusing that without a guide, one would never escape. Could the layout have served as a physical metaphor for spiritual or cosmic journeys, paths designed to test a person's mental or moral state? Or was it made to hide something, a truth or an artifact, meant only for those who could navigate its maze? The possibility exists that below the visible ruins lies a network of chambers still intact, holding relics of forgotten dynasties, or knowledge long erased from record. Perhaps the labyrinth wasn't destroyed, only hidden by time and sand, awaiting someone persistent enough to uncover it. Why has the labyrinth of Hawara been so neglected in modern archaeology, despite such vivid historical descriptions? Could it be a victim of circumstance, or is it possible that what's buried there poses uncomfortable questions about the timeline of human civilization? For now, the desert keeps its silence. The labyrinth remains a ghost, a whispered rumor in dusty texts, a shadow beneath satellite images, and a chilling reminder that what we call lost may simply be waiting to be remembered. The disappearance of the Sumerian civilization. The Sumerians are often credited with the birth of civilization itself. In the fertile lands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, they created one of the earliest urban societies, developing remarkable advancements in writing, law, agriculture, and architecture. Yet, despite their incredible achievements, the Sumerians mysteriously vanished, leaving behind a legacy that continues to baffle historians and archaeologists. Around 2000 BCE, the once thriving cities of Sumer began to decline rapidly. By the time the Akkadian Empire rose to power, the Sumerians had largely disappeared from the historical record. The reason behind their disappearance is a subject of intense debate among scholars, with theories ranging from warfare and invasion to environmental collapse. One widely accepted theory is that the Sumerians fell victim to the changing climate. The region, known for its fertile soil, was highly dependent on the Tigris and Euphrates rivers for irrigation. Over time, shifts in the river's course and the onset of droughts may have disrupted their agricultural practices, leading to widespread famine and a collapse of their society. However, some believe that the downfall of the Sumerians was not solely due to natural causes. The rise of the Akkadian Empire, led by the ambitious Sargon of Akkad, played a key role in the Sumerian decline. As Sargon conquered Sumerian city-states, many of the Sumerians fled or were absorbed into the Akkadian culture, further eroding the distinct identity of Sumer. But while these theories seem plausible, they don't fully explain the rapid and complete disappearance of the Sumerians. After all, the Sumerians didn't vanish in a single catastrophic event. Their culture slowly eroded over time, leaving behind few traces of their once great civilization. And despite their decline, the Sumerians' influence on the cultures that followed cannot be overstated. The cuneiform writing system, which they developed, became the foundation for many ancient languages, and their advancements in mathematics, astronomy, and law would shape civilizations for millennia to come. So, what really happened to the Sumerians? Was it an environmental disaster, an invasion, or something else entirely? Was their disappearance part of a larger cycle of rise and fall that has repeated throughout human history? And perhaps the most intriguing question of all, was their knowledge, their secrets, lost to the sands of time forever, or could it be waiting to be rediscovered? The Sumerians may be gone, but their story remains one of the most enduring mysteries of the ancient world. The Nazca Lines of Peru. In the arid desert of southern Peru, thousands of mysterious geoglyphs stretch across the land, known as the Nazca Lines. These immense designs, ranging from simple geometric shapes to intricate representations of animals like spiders, monkeys, and hummingbirds, have puzzled researchers for centuries. But what is even more perplexing is the fact that these enormous images can only truly be appreciated from the sky. How could a civilization, without the aid of modern technology, create such precise and vast figures? The Nazca Lines cover an area of nearly 1,000 square kilometers, with some of the longest lines stretching over 300 meters in length. Their sheer size and complexity suggest an advanced understanding of engineering and geometry, yet no one knows for sure how the ancient Nazca people accomplished such a feat. One popular theory suggests that the Nazca people created the lines as part of religious rituals to appease the gods. The lines could have been intended to be seen by deities in the sky, aligning with their belief that the gods controlled the weather and agricultural fertility. Others believe that the lines were markers for water sources or paths used by the Nazca people, guiding them through a harsh and unforgiving desert landscape. But perhaps the most puzzling aspect of the Nazca Lines is their apparent purpose. Why create such massive geoglyphs, visible only from the air, in a region where air travel did not exist for thousands of years after their creation? Could these lines have been a way to communicate with extraterrestrial beings? This theory gained popularity when some researchers pointed out that many of the figures seemed to align with celestial bodies, leading to speculations about ancient knowledge of astronomy and the possibility of extraterrestrial contact. Furthermore, the discovery of new geoglyphs and the ongoing excavation of the Nazca Lines has raised even more questions. In recent years, modern technology like drones and satellite imaging has uncovered previously unknown lines and patterns, deepening the mystery of the Nazca civilization. What were the true intentions behind the creation of the Nazca Lines? Were they part of religious rituals, markers for ancient trade routes, or something more mysterious? Could the ancient Nazca people have had contact with extraterrestrial beings, or is there another explanation entirely? As new discoveries continue to be made, the Nazca Lines remain one of the most intriguing and unsolved mysteries of the ancient world. The disappearance of the Roanoke colony. In 1587, a group of English settlers arrived on Roanoke Island, located off the coast of North Carolina, with the hopes of establishing the first permanent English colony in the New World. However, just 3 years later, when a supply ship arrived in 1590, the entire colony had vanished without a trace. The only clue left behind was the word Frucodoen carved into a wooden post, and Crudoen was the name of a nearby island and tribe. What happened to the settlers of Roanoke? Did they fall victim to disease or conflict with local Native American tribes? Were they attacked and killed by hostile forces, or did they mysteriously disappear into the wilderness, never to be heard from again? Theories about their disappearance abound. Some suggest that the settlers assimilated with local Native American tribes, particularly the Crudoen people, and may have been absorbed into their culture, though no definitive evidence has ever been found to support this. Others speculate that the settlers could have been victims of a brutal attack by rival colonists or Native American groups, while some even suggest that they were lost to some form of unexplained disaster. Adding to the intrigue is the discovery of evidence that suggests the settlers may have been attempting to relocate. In 1587, the settlers had left behind a written record detailing their plans to move further inland, in search of more fertile land. This may have led to their eventual disappearance. Did they go inland, only to fall victim to starvation or an unknown fate? Or could they have been swept away in a natural disaster, like a hurricane, that caused them to be stranded or lost forever? Despite numerous attempts to solve the mystery, no solid evidence has ever been uncovered to explain the fate of the Roanoke colony. Archaeologists and historians have scoured the area, dug through artifacts, and examined written records, but the disappearance remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. What truly happened to the people of Roanoke? Did they disappear without a trace, or did they live on in a form that history has yet to uncover? The answer may never be fully known, but the mystery of Roanoke continues to captivate the imagination of those who ponder the fate of this lost colony. The Voynich Manuscript. Deep in the vaults of Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library lies a book that has confounded scholars, cryptographers, and historians for centuries, the Voynich Manuscript. This ancient handwritten Tommy, believed to have been created in the early 15th century, is filled with strange, indecipherable writing and bizarre illustrations of plants, astronomical diagrams, and otherworldly figures. Despite countless attempts, no one has been able to decode its mysterious text, and its origins remain unknown. What is perhaps most perplexing about the Voynich Manuscript is not just its enigmatic language, but the fact that its content appears to be completely unrelated to any known culture or language of the time. The illustrations depict unfamiliar plants that don't seem to match any known species, as well as strange, almost surreal, images of women bathing in pools or conducting alchemical rituals. These illustrations, along with the text itself, suggest that the manuscript may have been created as some sort of esoteric or mystical work. But if so, what was its purpose? Many theories have been proposed over the years. Some believe that the manuscript could be an elaborate hoax, created by a clever forger who crafted a mysterious text and accompanying illustrations to spark curiosity. Others think it might be an alchemical or medical text, possibly containing knowledge lost to history. There have been suggestions that the manuscript could contain encoded secrets, hidden knowledge, or even a lost language that could shed light on forgotten civilizations. Theories have also pointed to the possibility that the manuscript is a work of extraterrestrial origin, or a secret code meant to be deciphered in the future. Despite advances in cryptography and digital analysis, the text of the Voynich Manuscript has remained frustratingly resistant to decryption. In recent years, AI and machine learning have been applied to the manuscript's text in an attempt to crack its code, but no breakthrough has yet been made. What is the true purpose of the Voynich Manuscript? Is it a work of secret knowledge waiting to be uncovered, or merely a strange curiosity from a long-forgotten time? The manuscript continues to fascinate and mystify those who try to unravel its secrets, and until someone is able to crack the code, the mysteries surrounding the Voynich manuscript will endure, continuing to puzzle and intrigue scholars and lay people alike. The Lost City of Atlantis. The tale of Atlantis, an advanced utopian civilization said to have existed thousands of years ago, has captivated the imaginations of historians, archaeologists, and adventurers for centuries. First described by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, Atlantis was a powerful island nation that supposedly sank into the ocean in a single day and night of catastrophic destruction. The legend has been passed down through the ages, but despite extensive searches, no concrete evidence of its existence has ever been found. According to Plato, Atlantis was a rich and technologically advanced civilization that thrived around 9,000 years before his time. It was described as being located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar, and was said to be larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined. Atlantis was depicted as a prosperous kingdom, with grand architecture, advanced technology, and a highly organized society. However, due to its growing corruption and moral decline, Atlantis was said to have fallen out of favor with the gods, leading to its sudden and violent destruction. Over the centuries, countless theories have been proposed about the location and fate of Atlantis. Some believe it was located in the Mediterranean Sea, with suggested sites ranging from the island of Santorini to the Canary Islands. Others think Atlantis may have been located in the Caribbean, possibly near the Bahamas or Cuba. Some even speculate that the story of Atlantis could be based on the real-life Minoan civilization, which experienced a catastrophic volcanic eruption around 1500 BCE that led to the downfall of the Minoan culture. Modern scientists have also offered theories about Atlantis, with some suggesting it was a myth created to explain the sudden disappearance of ancient cultures. Others believe that the idea of a sunken civilization might be inspired by real events, such as the end of the Ice Age or the flooding of coastal regions due to rising sea levels. However, despite the wide range of theories, no archaeological evidence has ever confirmed the existence of Atlantis. There have been many underwater expeditions and explorations of ancient shipwrecks, but none have uncovered the ruins of a lost city that matches Plato's description. Is Atlantis a true historical mystery, or simply an ancient myth that grew over time? Could a once thriving civilization have vanished beneath the waves, or is the legend merely an allegory for the rise and fall of human civilizations? The search for Atlantis continues, but as of yet its secrets remain hidden beneath the depths of the ocean, waiting to be uncovered, or perhaps never to be found at all. The hidden machines of the Antikythera wreck. In the year 1901, sponge divers, exploring off the coast of Antikythera, a small Greek island, stumbled upon a shipwreck buried beneath the sea. Among the statues and artifacts they recovered, one object stood out, not because of its beauty, but because of its complexity. At first glance, it appeared to be nothing more than a lump of corroded bronze and wood. But when the layers were carefully peeled back, what they found shocked the world. A mechanism of interlocking gears so precise, so advanced, that it should not have existed in the ancient world. Today we know it as the Antikythera mechanism. Dated to around 100 BCE, the device has been called the world's first analog computer. It could predict eclipses, track the movements of the sun and moon, and even account for the irregular orbit of the moon, a feat that required an understanding of astronomy and engineering far beyond what historians believed ancient civilizations possessed. What makes this so disturbing isn't just the existence of the mechanism itself, it's the complete absence of any record of the technology that made it. No blueprints, no prototypes, no similar devices found anywhere else. One single machine, buried in the sea for over 2,000 years, with no known predecessors or successors. It's like finding a jet engine in a medieval ruin. Researchers have spent decades using X-ray scans and 3D modeling to reconstruct the device, and each time they peel away another layer, the complexity deepens. The gear ratios, the inscriptions, the functions, it all suggests a level of mechanical knowledge not seen again until the development of complex clockworks over 1,000 years later. So who built it, and how did they gain this knowledge? Some historians believe it was the work of Archimedes or his students, implying a secret lineage of scientific understanding that was lost after the fall of classical Greece. Others speculate that it was just one of many such machines, all of which were destroyed, forgotten, or hidden in the chaos that followed the collapse of ancient civilizations. But there's another question, perhaps even more important. If one device like this survived underwater for 2 millennia, how many others might be lost beneath the seas, buried in silt and time, waiting to be discovered? Some researchers now believe that the ancient world may have had a deeper grasp of mechanical principles than we've ever acknowledged. Not magic, not aliens, just forgotten genius. Knowledge that vanished in wars, fires, and cultural collapse, leaving behind only fragments to confuse and astonish us. And the most haunting part, we still don't fully understand how the Antikythera mechanism works. Every few years new discoveries are made. Small inscriptions, hidden gears, or changes in our understanding of its purpose. It's as if the device is still guarding its secrets, slowly revealing pieces of a puzzle we're not yet ready to solve. What else have we overlooked? What other pieces of impossible technology lie beneath our feet or beneath our oceans, mislabeled, ignored, or waiting in the dark? The mystery of the Great Zimbabwe. Great Zimbabwe is one of the most impressive and enigmatic archaeological sites in Africa. Located in the southeastern hills of Zimbabwe, this ancient city was once the heart of a powerful civilization, but its origins and the true extent of its achievements remain shrouded in mystery. The site, which dates back to between the 11th and 15th centuries, is known for its massive stone ruins, particularly the Great Enclosure, a towering structure made of tightly fitted granite blocks that form walls over 30 feet high in some places. What makes the mystery of Great Zimbabwe so compelling is that, despite its grandeur, no written records exist to explain the people who built it or the purpose of the city. Historians and archaeologists have long debated the identity of the builders and the reasons behind the sudden abandonment of the city. Some believe that Great Zimbabwe was the center of a great empire that controlled trade routes across Africa, particularly in gold and ivory. The city may have flourished as a trading hub between the interior of Africa and the coastal regions, which could explain the incredible wealth that the city seemed to generate. Yet, the reasons behind its sudden decline and abandonment remain unclear. The walls of the Great Enclosure, as well as other structures in the city, are made from a technique known as dry stone walling, in which large stones are carefully stacked without the use of mortar. The precision and skill involved in constructing these walls are remarkable, but how the builders achieved such expertise without the aid of modern technology is still a mystery. The site also contains fascinating artifacts, including pottery, beads, and tools, but there are no signs of written language, which leaves the history of the people who lived there largely speculative. Adding to the intrigue is the controversy surrounding the origin of the people who built Great Zimbabwe. For many years, colonial-era historians claimed that the city could not have been constructed by the indigenous African people, suggesting instead that it was the work of ancient Phoenicians, Arabs, or even the Queen of Sheba. These theories were often rooted in racist assumptions that indigenous Africans were incapable of creating such advanced civilizations. Modern scholars, however, have firmly rejected these ideas, asserting that the builders of Great Zimbabwe were indeed the ancestors of the Shona people who still live in the region today. Despite extensive archaeological research, the reasons for the city's abandonment remain elusive. Some theories suggest that environmental changes, such as droughts or overpopulation, may have played a role in the decline of Great Zimbabwe. Others believe that political instability or shifting trade routes could have contributed to the city's fall. What remains certain is that Great Zimbabwe was once a thriving and sophisticated urban center, and its mystery continues to captivate those who seek to uncover the truth behind its rise and fall. The legacy of Great Zimbabwe endures, as the ruins stand as a testament to the ingenuity and strength of the people who once called it home. But the ultimate mystery remains: why did such a powerful and impressive civilization fade away into history, leaving only stones as evidence of its greatness. The mystery of the Great Zimbabwe. Great Zimbabwe is one of the most impressive and enigmatic archaeological sites in Africa. Located in the southeastern hills of Zimbabwe, this ancient city was once the heart of a powerful civilization, but its origins and the true extent of its achievements remain shrouded in mystery. The site, which dates back to between the 11th and 15th centuries, is known for its massive stone ruins, particularly the Great Enclosure, a towering structure made of tightly fitted granite blocks that form walls over 30 feet high in some places. What makes the mystery of Great Zimbabwe so compelling is that, despite its grandeur, no written records exist to explain the people who built it or the purpose of the city. Historians and archaeologists have long debated the identity of the builders and the reasons behind the sudden abandonment of the city. Some believe that Great Zimbabwe was the center of a great empire that controlled trade routes across Africa, particularly in gold and ivory. The city may have flourished as a trading hub between the interior of Africa and the coastal regions, which could explain the incredible wealth that the city seemed to generate. Yet, the reasons behind its sudden decline and abandonment remain unclear. The walls of the Great Enclosure, as well as other structures in the city, are made from a technique known as dry stone walling, in which large stones are carefully stacked without the use of mortar. The precision and skill involved in constructing these walls are remarkable, but how the builders achieved such expertise without the aid of modern technology is still a mystery. The site also contains fascinating artifacts, including pottery, beads, and tools, but there are no signs of written language, which leaves the history of the people who lived there largely speculative. Adding to the intrigue is the controversy surrounding the origin of the people who built Great Zimbabwe. For many years, colonial-era historians claimed that the city could not have been constructed by the indigenous African people, suggesting instead that it was the work of ancient Phoenicians, Arabs, or even the Queen of Sheba. These theories were often rooted in racist assumptions that indigenous Africans were incapable of creating such advanced civilizations. Modern scholars, however, have firmly rejected these ideas, asserting that the builders of Great Zimbabwe were indeed the ancestors of the Shona people who still live in the region today. Despite extensive archaeological research, the reasons for the city's abandonment remain elusive. Some theories suggest that environmental changes, such as droughts or overpopulation, may have played a role in the decline of Great Zimbabwe. Others believe that political instability or shifting trade routes could have contributed to the city's fall. What remains certain is that Great Zimbabwe was once a thriving and sophisticated urban center, and its mystery continues to captivate those who seek to uncover the truth behind its rise and fall. The legacy of Great Zimbabwe endures, as the ruins stand as a testament to the ingenuity and strength of the people who once called it home. But the ultimate mystery remains: why did such a powerful and impressive civilization fade away into history, leaving only stones as evidence of its greatness? The silent pyramids of the Amazon. In the heart of the Amazon rainforest, far from the well-known ruins of the Mayan or Inca civilizations, lies a mysterious set of pyramids, structures so hidden that they were only discovered by modern explorers just a few decades ago. These pyramids, unlike their more famous counterparts, have remained largely untouched, and their origin remains a source of fascination and confusion. The discovery occurred in 1995, when a team of researchers using LiDAR light detection and ranging technology identified strange geometric shapes beneath the dense canopy of the rainforest. At first glance, the shapes resembled natural formations, but as the scans grew more detailed, a clear pattern emerged. Hidden beneath centuries of overgrowth lay what appeared to be massive pyramidal structures, older and more complex than anything previously known in South America. The pyramids in the Amazon are not like the iconic step pyramids of Egypt or the towering structures of Central America. These are much smaller and appear to be scattered across a vast region. They do not follow the traditional layouts or styles of known ancient cultures, and their purpose is still a mystery. Some researchers believe that these pyramids were built by an unknown pre-Columbian civilization, one that existed long before the rise of the Incas or the Mayans. The site appears to be a highly organized city complex, with evidence of roads, canals, and agricultural terraces, all indicators of an advanced society. Yet no written records have been found to explain who these people were or why they disappeared without leaving a trace. Adding to the intrigue, the pyramids in the Amazon seem to defy the common belief that the dense rainforest was an environment too harsh for large-scale human settlement. The fact that such complex structures could exist hidden in the jungle challenges what we know about the history of the Americas. Could this lost civilization have had knowledge of advanced engineering techniques that we have yet to understand? Perhaps the most puzzling aspect of these pyramids is their quiet existence. Unlike the grand, publicly celebrated structures of Egypt or Mexico, the Amazon pyramids remain silent, untouched, and nearly forgotten by the world. The dense jungle seems to be both hiding and protecting them, as if they are waiting for the right time to reveal their full story. Researchers have struggled to study the site due to its remote location, the difficult terrain, and the ongoing danger posed by illegal logging operations in the region. Some believe that the pyramids may hold clues to a lost chapter of human history, one that could change everything we thought we knew about ancient civilizations. However, it is also possible that these secrets will remain buried beneath the endless canopy of the Amazon, hidden away from the world forever. The silent pyramids of the Amazon represent an enigma that is still unraveling. As scientists and explorers continue to venture into this mysterious part of the world, the question lingers: who built these structures, and why were they abandoned? The pyramids stand as silent sentinels in the jungle, waiting perhaps for the right person to discover their hidden truths. The Amazon holds many secrets, but these pyramids may be among its most elusive and most important. The silent pyramids of the Amazon. In the heart of the Amazon rainforest, far from the well-known ruins of the Mayan or Inca civilizations, lies a mysterious set of pyramids, structures so hidden that they were only discovered by modern explorers just a few decades ago. These pyramids, unlike their more famous counterparts, have remained largely untouched, and their origin remains a source of fascination and confusion. The discovery occurred in 1995, when a team of researchers using LiDAR light detection and ranging technology identified strange geometric shapes beneath the dense canopy of the rainforest. At first glance, the shapes resembled natural formations, but as the scans grew more detailed, a clear pattern emerged. Hidden beneath centuries of overgrowth lay what appeared to be massive pyramidal structures, older and more complex than anything previously known in South America. The pyramids in the Amazon are not like the iconic step pyramids of Egypt or the towering structures of Central America. These are much smaller and appear to be scattered across a vast region. They do not follow the traditional layouts or styles of known ancient cultures, and their purpose is still a mystery. Some researchers believe that these pyramids were built by an unknown pre-Columbian civilization, one that existed long before the rise of the Incas or the Mayans. The site appears to be a highly organized city complex, with evidence of roads, canals, and agricultural terraces, all indicators of an advanced society. Yet no written records have been found to explain who these people were or why they disappeared without leaving a trace. Adding to the intrigue, the pyramids in the Amazon seem to defy the common belief that the dense rainforest was an environment too harsh for large-scale human settlement. The fact that such complex structures could exist hidden in the jungle challenges what we know about the history of the Americas. Could this lost civilization have had knowledge of advanced engineering techniques that we have yet to understand? Perhaps the most puzzling aspect of these pyramids is their quiet existence. Unlike the grand, publicly celebrated structures of Egypt or Mexico, the Amazon pyramids remain silent, untouched, and nearly forgotten by the world. The dense jungle seems to be both hiding and protecting them, as if they are waiting for the right time to reveal their full story. Researchers have struggled to study the site due to its remote location, the difficult terrain, and the ongoing danger posed by illegal logging operations in the region. Some believe that the pyramids may hold clues to a lost chapter of human history, one that could change everything we thought we knew about ancient civilizations. However, it is also possible that these secrets will remain buried beneath the endless canopy of the Amazon, hidden away from the world forever. The silent pyramids of the Amazon represent an enigma that is still unraveling. As scientists and explorers continue to venture into this mysterious part of the world, the question lingers: who built these structures, and why were they abandoned? The pyramids stand as silent sentinels in the jungle, waiting perhaps for the right person to discover their hidden truths. The Amazon holds many secrets, but these pyramids may be among its most elusive and most important. The lost city of the Grand Canyon. Nestled in the rugged heart of the Grand Canyon lies a mystery that has baffled explorers, historians, and archaeologists for over a century. In 1909, an article in the Arizona Gazette made an astonishing claim. A hidden city had been discovered deep within the Grand Canyon, untouched by time. According to the report, a man named G.E. Kincaid, a self-proclaimed archaeologist, was exploring the canyon when he stumbled upon a series of caves. Inside, he allegedly found evidence of an ancient civilization, complete with intricate carvings, statues, and artifacts resembling those from ancient Egypt. The article described the discovery as a city built into the walls of the canyon itself, featuring large chambers and passageways. Among the most startling findings were the mummies of what appeared to be people of Asian descent, dressed in clothing that seemed to belong to an ancient unknown culture. The most curious discovery, however, was a vast collection of Egyptian-like artifacts, statues, pottery, and even weapons, all pointing to the possibility that an advanced civilization may have once thrived in this isolated part of North America. But the story takes an eerie turn. The article stated that after the initial excitement of the discovery, the location of the caves and the entrance to the hidden city were mysteriously sealed off. When Kincaid and his team returned to continue their excavation, they found that the entrance had disappeared, swallowed by the canyon itself. No trace of the city or the artifacts could be found again. The U.S. government, upon hearing about the discovery, immediately intervened, sealing the caves and putting an end to further exploration. In the years that followed, the story of the lost city faded into obscurity, dismissed by many as a hoax or exaggeration. But for those who believe in the mystery, the questions persist. Was the discovery real, or was it a carefully orchestrated tale to hide something far deeper? Why did the U.S. government seem so eager to suppress the information, and what did Kincaid and his team truly uncover in those caves? There are a number of theories surrounding the lost city. Some believe that the ancient civilization found in the Grand Canyon could have been a group of explorers or settlers from the distant past, possibly even from the ancient world, like the Egyptians or the Phoenicians. Others suggest that the city could have been built by Native American ancestors long before the well-known tribes arrived in the area. Some go so far as to speculate that the civilization could have been from an entirely unknown culture that predated any known history. Despite extensive research and modern-day expeditions to the Grand Canyon, no concrete evidence has ever surfaced to confirm the existence of this lost city. The stories surrounding the mysterious find, however, continue to inspire exploration. Could there be a hidden history beneath the layers of rock and time, waiting to be uncovered? Or was the tale simply a clever fabrication meant to stir the imaginations of adventurers and dreamers alike? The Grand Canyon, a place of stunning beauty and incredible geological significance, continues to guard its secrets. Whether the lost city ever existed, or whether it remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the American West, is a question that remains unanswered. Yet, the allure of what might lie beneath its ancient stones continues to captivate those who believe that, just maybe, there's a forgotten history buried deep in the canyon's shadow. The vanishing village of Anjikuni Lake. Deep in the northern territories of Canada lies Anjikuni Lake, a serene and remote location surrounded by towering forests and rugged wilderness. It's a place few travelers dare to venture due to its isolation and harsh conditions. But in 1930, a chilling story began to emerge from this tranquil lake that would forever leave a mark on local history. The tale begins when a fur trapper by the name of Joe LaBelle arrived at a village near the lake. He had made this journey many times before, and he was expecting to find the usual community of Inuit people living in the small settlement, a group he had come to know well over the years. However, what he found instead was something he couldn't explain. As Lebel approached the village, something felt off. The air was eerily still, and the usual sounds of village life, the chatter, the children playing, the whir of daily activities were absent. When he entered the village, his heart sank as he realized the place was completely deserted. There were no signs of a struggle or signs that the village had been abandoned in a hurry. It was as if the people had simply vanished into thin air. Lebel began his search for any clues as to what had happened. Inside the huts, everything was left as it was. Cooking pots were still out, some with food in them, and blankets were neatly folded, but the inhabitants were gone. Strangely, there were no footprints leading out of the village, nor were there any tracks in the snow. It was as if the entire population of the village had simply vanished without a trace. One of the most unsettling discoveries Lebel made was a campfire that had recently been used, yet there was no one around to tend it. Nearby he found a cache of supplies, blankets, food, and weapons, left behind, as if the villagers had planned to return at any moment, but never did. Lebel quickly left the area and reported the disappearance to the nearest settlement. The story spread, and search parties were sent to investigate, but they found no further evidence of the missing villagers. What was even more perplexing was that the villagers of Anjikuni Lake had never been heard from again. No sign of them was ever found in the surrounding forests, no bodies were discovered, and no other villages were found that could explain their disappearance. Over the years, several theories have surfaced about what might have happened to the people of Anjikuni Lake. Some suggest that the village was the victim of an attack by outsiders, perhaps explorers or other unknown groups. However, the absence of any signs of violence or struggle doesn't seem to support this theory. Others believe that the village could have fallen victim to a natural disaster, perhaps a sudden and violent weather event or an avalanche, that left no survivors. More bizarre theories suggest that the village's inhabitants may have been involved in some sort of ritual or belief system, leading them to vanish voluntarily. Some believe they were part of a group that believed in spiritual journeys or transcendence, and they may have left for a place beyond the physical world, leaving everything behind. Another theory is that something supernatural might be at play. Over the years, there have been reports of strange lights in the sky and inexplicable phenomena near Anjikuni Lake. Could the disappearance of the village have been the result of extraterrestrial activity? Some believe that the villagers were taken by beings from another world, leaving nothing but the mystery of their sudden disappearance. Despite numerous attempts to uncover the truth, the mystery of the vanishing village of Anjikuni Lake remains unsolved. No conclusive evidence has ever emerged, and the story remains one of Canada's most enduring and eerie legends. The lake itself continues to attract the curious, but those who venture too close often find themselves drawn into the same mystery that has baffled so many before them. Is it possible that the village still holds a secret buried deep within its woods, waiting to be discovered, or did the people of Anjikuni Lake vanish as if they were never there at all, leaving only their unanswered questions behind? The lost expedition of the Franklin crew. In 1845, one of the most infamous and puzzling expeditions in the history of polar exploration took place. Led by Sir John Franklin, the British Royal Navy set out to find the elusive Northwest Passage, a route through the Arctic that would connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Franklin and his crew of 129 men were well equipped and had already gained recognition for their exploration skills. Yet, despite their preparations, they would vanish without a trace, leaving behind a mystery that still haunts explorers today. The expedition set sail on two ships, the HMS Erebus and the HMS Terror. Equipped with the latest technology and sufficient provisions for a multi-year voyage, the ships were last seen by the whaling ship Barrett in the waters off Canada's Baffin Island in July of 1845. However, after that, no word was heard from Franklin's ships. It wasn't until 1848, 3 years later, that a rescue mission was sent out to locate the missing vessels. What the rescuers found was both bizarre and horrifying. Pieces of wreckage from the Erebus and Terror were found scattered across the ice. Yet, there was no sign of the men, and no explanation for what had happened. What was even more perplexing was that in the wreckage, all of the ship's logs and maps were missing, as though they had been intentionally discarded or destroyed. As the years passed, explorers began to uncover strange clues scattered across the Arctic landscape. Many Inuit tribes in the region claimed to have seen the men of Franklin's expedition in the years following their disappearance, but their accounts were often dismissed by European explorers. Some reports suggested that the crew had resorted to cannibalism to survive the harsh conditions, while others spoke of strange sightings and encounters, including the discovery of human remains in areas that should have been completely inaccessible. In 1850, a group of searchers discovered a message that further deepened the mystery. It was found on King William Island, one of the last places the Erebus and Terror were thought to have been, and it contained a cryptic note. HMS Terror and Erebus abandoned the 5th of May 1848. No one has survived. The note suggested that the crew had managed to survive longer than initially thought, but they had ultimately given up hope of escape. Yet, there was no indication of where the crew had gone after this point. Over the years, multiple expeditions and researchers have worked tirelessly to solve the mystery. In 2014, a breakthrough occurred when the wreck of the Erebus was finally located on the seabed of the Arctic Ocean, just off the coast of King William Island. The Terror was found in 2016, just a few miles away. The ships were remarkably well preserved, but still, no definitive answer was found to explain the disappearance of Franklin's men. Why did they abandon the ships? How had they managed to survive for so long in one of the most inhospitable places on Earth? And why were their remains never conclusively found? Theories about what happened to the Franklin crew abound, ranging from plausible to the bizarre. Some believe that the crew perished from a combination of exposure, scurvy, and lead poisoning from the poorly treated tin cans in which their food was stored. Others believe the men might have been trapped in the Arctic ice and became hopelessly stranded, resorting to extreme measures to survive, including cannibalism, which was hinted at in the evidence found later. Another theory suggests that the crew's disappearance was not simply the result of misfortune, but possibly a conspiracy or even sabotage. Was Franklin's plan to navigate the Northwest Passage doomed from the start, or could there have been hidden sabotage by rival powers seeking to prevent British exploration of the Arctic? Some even argue that the crew encountered something inexplicable. Strange reports of ghostly figures and mysterious disappearances by other Arctic explorers point to the possibility that the region may have been cursed or haunted. Is it possible that the men encountered something beyond human comprehension in the frozen wasteland that led to their demise? The disappearance of Sir John Franklin's expedition remains unsolved, and its legacy lives on as one of the greatest mysteries of exploration. Despite the discovery of the wrecks, many questions still remain. The men of the Franklin expedition vanished in one of the most isolated and unforgiving regions of the Earth, and the story of their disappearance continues to spark intrigue and wonder. What exactly happened to Franklin and his crew? Why did they disappear without a trace? And is there something more to their fate that we have yet to uncover? The mystery of the lost Franklin expedition still calls out to explorers, historians, and dreamers alike. The ancient Quipu code. Did the Inca have a language we still can't read? Hidden high in the Andes, the Inca Empire once stretched across vast territories, an empire of mountains, clouds, and mysteries. Unlike other great civilizations, the Inca left behind no written records in the way we understand writing. They had no alphabet, no scrolls, and no books. Yet they controlled millions of people, built incredible stone cities, and administered an empire with striking efficiency. So how did they manage such organization without written language? The answer may lie in a strange, almost forgotten system of knotted strings, called quipus. At first glance, a quipu looks deceptively simple. It's a cord with several other strings hanging from it, each tied with knots in different patterns. Early Spanish colonists, confused by these devices, described them as primitive calculators or tax records. For decades, historians agreed, quipus were merely accounting tools. They were used to track llamas, harvests, and tribute, nothing more. But then the questions started to grow. There were too many of them. They were too complex. Some had over 1,000 chords, with knots arranged in baffling sequences. Some seemingly mathematical, others oddly abstract. Why would such an intricate system be used just to count potatoes? In the 1990s, a breakthrough came when researchers discovered quipus that didn't seem to fit the numerical model. Some quipus contained repeating patterns, clusters of colors and knots that seemed less like numbers and more like structured language. The knots weren't just tied for value but for position, shape, and direction. In other words, these might not be calculators. They might be sentences. Imagine an entire language encoded not in letters or characters, but in color, twist, length, and fiber. Like Braille without touch, or Morse code with texture. This meant the Inca may have had a form of writing all along, one that colonizers never understood, and that modern historians had long overlooked. Some scholars believe the quipu system could store more than 1,500 unique words or ideas through combinations. The colors of the threads may have signaled categories: red for war, yellow for gold, green for agriculture. The fiber itself, cotton, wool, or hair, could add even more nuance. The direction of a knot's twist, clockwise or counterclockwise, might have indicated tense or tone. This wasn't a ledger. This was a language. Even more intriguingly, oral traditions of the Andes speak of quipu camaics, specially trained individuals who could read the quipu with their fingers, remembering long genealogies, histories, and laws. These people were respected, even feared. They were the record keepers, the archivists of a civilization without ink. And when the Spanish invaded, they saw quipus as symbols of pagan control and began burning them. Today, fewer than 600 original quipus survive, out of thousands that once existed. Many of those are damaged or partially incomplete. The Inca civilization was one of the most powerful in the Americas, and yet its true voice may have been erased by fire. But the mystery hasn't died. Recently, researchers using computer models have begun analyzing surviving quipus as if they were coded languages. Some believe there's a chance, just a slim one, that with enough surviving examples, we could eventually crack the pattern. Like the Rosetta Stone revealed the secrets of hieroglyphs, maybe one day we'll uncover a Rosetta quipu, a dual recorded message that decodes the knots into understandable meaning. Until then, every surviving quipu is like a locked diary, silent, waiting, tied not just with thread, but with time itself. If this system truly is a lost language, then the Incas were not without writing. They were simply speaking in a way we still don't understand. Which makes one wonder, how many messages from the past are still tied up in string, hanging silently in museum drawers or dusty archaeological storage rooms. Could a full library of ancient Andean knowledge be sitting before us, coded, knotted, and unread? And if so, what secrets has it kept hidden for centuries? The disappearance of the Amber Room. One of the most legendary and puzzling disappearances in history revolves around the Amber Room, a masterpiece of Baroque art created in the 18th century. It was a room entirely adorned with amber panels, gold leaf, and mirrors, making it one of the most stunning examples of craftsmanship and luxury. Its creation was started in 1701 in Prussia and completed in 1711, later installed in the Catherine Palace of Tsarskoye Selo near St. Petersburg, Russia. For centuries, the Amber Room was a symbol of opulence and artistic achievement, but in 1941 it vanished without a trace, and its whereabouts remain a mystery to this day. The Amber Room was a symbol of Russian heritage and was even dubbed the eighth wonder of the world. Its golden walls shimmered with the light from countless mirrors, and the amber panels, which were made from amber pieces from the Baltic Sea, seemed to glow with a warm golden hue. The room was a work of art that blended materials, history, and culture, combining the skill of craftsmen from several nations. It was designed to be a spectacle, a room that dazzled all who entered it. In the years before its disappearance, the Amber Room was admired by many visitors to the Catherine Palace. It became an iconic treasure for Russia and an integral part of the palace's touristic appeal. However, with the outbreak of World War II, this jewel of the Tsarist era became a target. As the Nazis advanced through Europe, they had their eyes set on the riches of the Russian Empire, including the Amber Room. In 1941, as the German forces swept into the Soviet Union, they reached the Catherine Palace in St. Petersburg. The German military, led by General Georg von Ribbentrop, was keen to loot the palace for its treasures. The Amber Room was dismantled by the German soldiers, who carefully removed the precious amber panels and packed them up for transport. Despite efforts to hide or protect the Amber Room, it was taken apart and packed into crates, never to be seen again. The disappearance of the Amber Room has led to countless theories and speculations. Some believe that it was transported to Germany and hidden in a secret location, possibly in a mine or bunker. Others speculate that the Amber Room may have been lost during the chaos of the war, with its fate sealed by bombings or destruction. The reality, however, remains elusive. One of the most persistent rumors surrounding the Amber Room's fate is that it was stored in a secret location in Germany, possibly in a cave or underground chamber. Various locations in Europe have been suggested, but none have yielded any solid evidence of the room's remains. In 1945, near the end of the war, Allied forces captured many of the German officers involved in the looting, but no one could definitively say where the Amber Room had been taken. Over the decades, many people have claimed to have knowledge of its whereabouts. In the 1950s, a German officer named Walter Bernhardt came forward with a story about seeing the Amber Room being hidden in a mine near the Baltic Sea. However, no evidence was ever found to corroborate this claim. Similar stories have surfaced in subsequent years, but none have led to the discovery of the missing room. In the 1970s, a group of treasure hunters embarked on an expedition to find the Amber Room, searching caves and mines across Eastern Europe. Despite their efforts, they returned empty-handed, with no trace of the Amber Room to be found. The idea that the Amber Room might have been destroyed during the war is also a theory that has been widely discussed. The extensive bombing raids over St. Petersburg and other locations in the Soviet Union during World War II could have led to the destruction of the room, leaving only its ruins behind. In the 2000s, a groundbreaking discovery brought a small glimmer of hope. A set of clues from a former German soldier, believed to have been part of the looting party, led to a mine in Poland. Excavations took place, but after years of searching, the Amber Room was still nowhere to be found. Theories of its destruction, hidden storage, and even relocation to a remote castle continue to swirl around the mystery. The Amber Room's fate remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of World War II. What happened to the most beautiful room ever made? Was it lost to the ravages of war, or is it hidden away waiting to be discovered? And if so, where? Is the Amber Room resting somewhere, carefully preserved and waiting for a future generation to find it, or was it destroyed beyond recognition during the chaos of the war? To this day, the mystery of the Amber Room continues to captivate historians, treasure hunters, and enthusiasts alike. The room, with its golden walls and shimmering amber panels, represents not only a loss of priceless art but also a tantalizing riddle, one that may never be solved. The tunnels beneath Dirinkuyu, a hidden city buried in the earth. Deep beneath the Anatolian plains of modern-day Turkey lies something most people wouldn't believe unless they saw it themselves. A place where entire communities once lived underground, not just in a few chambers but in a full city, carved straight into the earth. It's called Dirinkuyu, and its existence opens up a mystery that has puzzled archaeologists, engineers, and historians for decades. This ancient subterranean city isn't a handful of caves. It spans at least 18 stories deep, large enough to house over 20,000 people, along with their livestock, food supplies, and even places of worship. Entire ventilation systems were carved into the rock to circulate air. Rolling stone doors sealed off levels in case of invasion. There were schools, wells, wine presses, stables, everything needed for long-term life, underground. And here's the strange part, we still don't know who built it, or when. The first level of Dirinkuyu might have been carved thousands of years ago, possibly as far back as 3000 BCE. But even that's debated. No written records exist from the time of its construction. No definitive signs pointing to the architects. Just layer after layer of chambers, cut with remarkable precision, winding down further than almost any other underground settlement we've found. And then there's the scale. To remove that much volcanic tough rock, without modern tools, without electric lighting, and without advanced ventilation, would have taken an extraordinary effort. Not just by a few families, but by generations of builders. Why would anyone go to such trouble? Some suggest it was a refuge from war. Others think it was protection against natural disasters, like massive storms or intense heat. Still, others whisper about ancient knowledge of environmental cataclysms or astronomical events passed down through oral tradition and forgotten texts. Could Dirinkuyu have been a lifeboat from an earlier age? A place of survival against a danger now lost to time? Here's something even stranger. Dirinkuyu isn't alone. The region of Cappadocia is riddled with hundreds of underground complexes. Some connect to each other through tunnels stretching kilometers across. The ancient engineers didn't just dig down, they built a hidden web, an entire underground network. It's as if they expected not just a moment of hiding, but a prolonged, organized retreat from the surface world. And over time, these cities were expanded and repurposed. Byzantine Christians later used them to escape persecution. Secret schools and churches were added, symbols of faith carved into walls, but that was long after the first builders had vanished. So now, we're left with questions. How was it engineered without collapsing? Who had the knowledge, the labor force, and the purpose to create such a thing? Could they have been protecting something, or hiding from someone, or something? And the deepest parts have barely been explored. Some tunnels remain sealed, others are too dangerous to access. Stories tell of researchers descending too far, only to find dead ends or passageways that twisted away into darkness, impossible to map. Some even claim the tunnels continue far beyond what's been officially recorded, possibly connecting to older, even deeper cities that have never seen light. There's something unsettling about it all. The silence of the stone walls, the air that doesn't move, is a realization that entire lives were lived beneath your feet, and that you might be walking above an entire world that has never been fully revealed. Could Dirinkuyu have been a memory of a forgotten era, a survival chamber from a time of chaos? Or is it something even more mysterious, evidence of a civilization we no longer remember, but that once knew secrets we've since lost? One thing is certain, it wasn't meant to be just a shelter. It was a city, a system, a mystery buried deep in the ground, and maybe, just maybe, it still holds answers no one has yet dared to uncover. The vanishing walls beneath the Great Salt Desert, deep beneath the parched, sun-bleached surface of the dashed Kavir, Iran's vast Great Salt Desert lies a mystery that has baffled scientists and explorers for decades. This enormous salt flat stretches for hundreds of kilometers, barren, cracked, and lifeless. But recent ground-penetrating radar surveys have revealed something impossible: rectilinear structures buried deep under the salt. Walls, rooms, corridors. Not natural formations, but symmetrical, stone-built structures lying dozens of meters below the surface, arranged in a grid-like fashion. Their alignment suggests planning, architecture, and possibly an ancient city long buried by time and salt. And the strangest part, there are no historical records of any civilization building anything there. No ruins on the surface, no mention in Persian chronicles. It's as if whatever existed there was not only buried, but deliberately erased. The structures came to light in the early 2000s when a group of geophysicists studying subsurface geology for salt and mineral extraction stumbled upon repeated radar anomalies. They expected to find ancient lake beds or salt domes, but instead found uniform echoes, like chambers, echoing back signals that looked far too precise to be natural. Further study hinted that the buried structures could span nearly 4 square kilometers, with walls that measured nearly 3 meters thick, made from stone that had no known source within 100 kilometers. But then came the silence. The Iranian government reportedly halted further exploration and sealed the region under environmental restrictions. The scientific team that first reported the radar findings, their published paper was retracted without explanation. One member of the team later claimed that they were asked to move on and not speak to foreign media. Why would an uninhabited salt desert hold something so secretive? And why shut down the discovery? Local nomadic tribes tell strange stories, whispers passed down over generations. Tales of a sunken city, swallowed by the desert after the skies turned red. According to one elder, there was once a land in the heart of the salt flats where no birds flew, and no water stayed, only dust and the bones of men who challenged the gods. These are oral legends, of course, but they align eerily with the radar maps, suggesting a place that was once inhabited, then rapidly abandoned or destroyed. Could it be the remains of an unknown civilization that thrived in central Iran thousands of years before written records? One that experienced some climatic collapse or salt flood that buried its city in crystallized crust? Or could it be something even older, far predating Persian history, perhaps a remnant of a lost era? No excavations have ever been permitted, no satellite data has been released, and now, the only hint of what lies beneath comes from a handful of radar scans, the silence of official records, and the cracked desert floor that hides whatever once stood there. Something was built in the heart of the Great Salt Desert, something was buried, and for now, it remains hidden, under layers of salt, secrecy, and silence. The impossible mines of the Kalahari, deep in the southern stretches of Africa, across the vast and silent Kalahari Desert, lies a mystery buried beneath centuries of sand. Scattered across the terrain, far from any known ancient civilization, explorers have stumbled upon what appear to be the remains of massive ancient mining operations, far older than they should be. These are not shallow pits or surface scrapes. We're talking about deep shafts, some descending dozens of meters into bedrock, with evidence of organized structure, venting channels, debris piles, and most bizarrely traces of advanced smelting techniques. Yet, according to conventional archaeology, no civilization with the capability for deep rock mining existed in this region more than 1,000 years ago, and these shafts, some are carbon dated to over 40,000 years old. The region, today desolate and dry, shows signs of having once supported dense vegetation and access to water, possibly explaining why ancient peoples might have once lived there. But the mining evidence is beyond anything hunter-gatherer societies were thought to be capable of. Even stranger, the primary mineral extracted in some of these sites is tin, a metal that serves little purpose on its own, but becomes crucial when alloyed with copper to make bronze. Yet, according to history, the Bronze Age began around 3300 BCE, mostly in the Middle East. What then was the purpose of tin mining 30,000 years earlier, on a continent with no recorded bronze technology at that time? In the 1980s, a South African geologist named Michael Tellinger began collecting unusual circular stone formations in the region, initially believed to be cattle enclosures or dwellings. But satellite imagery revealed something startling. The formations were far too numerous, uniform and geometrically aligned, resembling a kind of grid-based network stretching over hundreds of kilometers. One theory proposed by fringe researchers is that these stone circles weren't dwellings at all, but resonance structures used for sound or energy-based purposes, possibly in conjunction with mining. While this idea is speculative, the formations show no clear entry or exit points, and no signs of fire or habitation. They appear more technological than domestic. Even stranger, magnetometer readings in the region show anomalies in the electromagnetic field, with spikes and pulses that researchers still struggle to explain. Some believe the stone arrangements could have interacted with natural Earth frequencies, although mainstream science remains skeptical. So who were the people who dug the deep shafts? Where did they go? And if they truly mined tin in the deep past, who was using it, and why? There are no inscriptions, no bones, no cities, only silence, and holes in the earth that defy our understanding of ancient technology. The deeper explorers dig into the mystery of the Kalahari mines, the more it feels like we are looking at the ruins of a forgotten epoch, one that had a purpose, a system and an industry, and then disappeared, leaving behind a desert that whispers of secrets buried in sand and stone. The hexagonal craters of Kazakhstan. Far out on the remote Kazakh steppe, hundreds of kilometers from any major city, satellite imagery has revealed something strange. Scattered across the barren terrain are huge geometric depressions, each roughly the same size, each with unnervingly straight edges, and most unusually, many of them are hexagonal. These aren't crop formations or recently dug trenches. These are wide, shallow craters, some measuring nearly 100 meters across, embedded in ancient earth. They don't follow any clear pattern, yet they seem artificial in origin. Natural erosion almost never forms such perfect geometric symmetry, especially not repeated hexagons. Early theories claimed they were the remains of collapsed salt domes, or even old Soviet experiments. But when geologists and remote sensing experts investigated, they were surprised to find no evidence of blasting, equipment, or human excavation. The soil compaction and mineral layering around the sites suggests that these formations are thousands of years old, if not more. Some researchers even found traces of ancient magnetic disturbances around the edges of these craters. Compass needles veer slightly off true north near them. Ground-penetrating radar revealed unusual layering beneath the hexagonal impressions, as if something intensely hot or pressurized once struck the surface from above, but not in a way consistent with meteorite impacts. Adding to the enigma, a few of the craters are interconnected by narrow trench-like grooves, almost like pathways or conduits. These lines are not random. They are angular, straight, and stretch for kilometers, but lead nowhere known. And then there's the most haunting aspect in the very center of some of the hexagons. Researchers found smooth stone-like platforms, too regular to be accidental. No culture is known to have built such structures on the Kazakh steppe, especially not thousands of years ago. There are no ruins, no tools, no texts, just the quiet vastness of land, and these geometrical scars, silent and unexplained. Satellite archives from earlier decades show these shapes were already visible in aerial photographs as far back as the 1940s. They haven't changed. They haven't grown over. The land around them is alive, but the craters remain static, like imprints in memory itself. Some speculate they could have been landing sites for something ancient, perhaps vehicles or crafts of unknown origin. Others think they were part of a now-lost mathematical or astronomical observatory, a grand geometric alignment etched into the earth for reasons long forgotten. But without artifacts, or even oral legends from the region, there's nothing to explain how they came to be, or what they were used for. All we know is this: the further the camera zooms out, the more of them appear. Dozens, then hundreds, like a forgotten map drawn in silence, hexagon after hexagon across the endless grasslands. What purpose did they serve? Who made them? And how? And why does the earth beneath them still seem disturbed? The Whispering Rock of Yakushima. Deep in the emerald forests of Yakushima Island, Japan, where thousand-year-old cedar trees stand like ancient guardians, and moss coats every stone, a strange phenomenon has quietly puzzled researchers, monks and locals alike for decades. It centers around a single solitary boulder, known only as the Whispering Rock. Hidden off the path, beyond the tourist trails and dense groves, this smooth, dark gray stone rests in a natural clearing. It's not particularly large or dramatic, just an oval-shaped granite slab, worn flat on the top, as if something once pressed down hard upon it. But if you sit on the rock during certain times of day, particularly just after rainfall or in heavy fog, you may begin to hear something that doesn't make sense. A whisper, not a breeze, not birds, not insects, but a low, layered murmur, like dozens of voices speaking just out of range of understanding. The sound seems to come not from the forest around you, but from within the stone itself. The earliest written mention comes from an Edo period monk who described the location as the seat of many spirits speaking in silence. He claimed the rock held the memories of ancient people, long vanished, and that the forest chose to keep them hidden in stone. Modern scientists have tried to explain it. Acoustic engineers visiting the island in the early 2000s placed sensitive audio devices near the rock and picked up unusual low-frequency vibrations that occurred only at specific humidity and temperature levels. One theory suggests the rock's unique mineral structure, combined with the surrounding forest canopy, creates a sort of natural resonator, amplifying and reflecting distant sounds in a warped, echoing pattern. But there's one problem. The voices don't seem to match any environmental source. They aren't echoes of footsteps, wind, or wildlife. The frequencies don't repeat like natural waves. Some even appear structured, like rhythmic syllables without language. Several recordings captured by independent visitors contain subtle patterns, repeated pulses and tonal shifts, almost like someone trying to speak from somewhere else. The rock is also always cool to the touch, even under direct sun. Locals say it's alive but asleep. Some believe the stone was once part of a much larger structure, possibly something buried beneath the forest floor, that predated even the oldest trees of Yakushima. Occasionally, researchers have reported short-term memory lapses or sensations of intense déjà vu after sitting on the Whispering Rock. One man claimed he vividly saw visions of people dressed in unfamiliar robes, walking silently through the woods, carrying what looked like scrolls made of stone or metal. But when he opened his eyes, the forest was still. No ruins have been found nearby, no artifacts, nothing to tie the rock to any known civilization. Yet even the ancient Jomon people, whose presence on the island dates back over 7,000 years, left no records of such a site. There's a quiet fear among some locals. They say if you listen too long, the voices begin to make sense, not in words, but in feelings, as if the rock is not whispering to you, but remembering through you. And perhaps what it remembers isn't meant to be known. To this day, the Whispering Rock remains undisturbed. No excavation, no development, just fog, forest, and the soft murmurs of something old, far older than anyone can explain. What's speaking from inside the stone? And more importantly, who or what is listening back? The forgotten grid beneath Lake Tazawa. Nestled high in Japan's Akita Prefecture lies Lake Tazawa, a stunning volcanic crater lake known for its extraordinary depth and strangely vivid blue water. At nearly 423 meters deep, it's Japan's deepest lake, but it's not just the depth that has baffled scientists and explorers for decades. It's what may lie beneath that smooth surface, an unexplained geometric grid, so precise, so large, and so hidden that most people don't even believe it exists. The lake is mostly untouched, surrounded by steep cliffs, thick forests, and ancient legends. The surface reflects the sky like a perfect mirror, but deep sonar scans, done sporadically over the last 50 years, have hinted at something unexpected resting on the lake bed. Not debris, not sediment formations, but a pattern, a network, a grid of right-angled structures stretching over an area larger than any natural geological formation should allow at that depth. It started in the 1970s, when a small university team ran experimental sonar sweeps for aquatic life. The scans returned anomalies they couldn't explain, large flat surfaces and sharp cornered drop-offs, unlike anything naturally found in volcanic lake beds. At first, they suspected an error, but later dives by remote submersibles decades later confirmed the same. There appeared to be a rectangular pattern on the bottom, like ancient roads, like buried architecture. But how could that be? Lake Tazawa has no known history of settlements beneath it. The area has been volcanic for thousands of years. It should be nothing but basalt and ash. Even stranger is that magnetic readings near the center of the lake fluctuate dramatically. Compasses become erratic. Radio signals distort. Several drone missions in recent years failed to return, vanishing beneath the water without trace. Theories began to circulate, not just of a lost city, but of a forgotten technology, something intentionally concealed. A leaked report from a deep Earth scan in 2014 hinted at a metallic lattice embedded far below the lake's basin, following the exact same grid shape seen in sonar. This pattern was estimated to span nearly 2 kilometers in diameter, with precision spacing, almost like a motherboard etched into the crust of the Earth. Yet there is no known source, no known culture, and no volcanic process that can explain the formation. Locals speak softly of it. Some say the lake was once the home of a deity who guarded ancient knowledge, and that the water itself was placed there to bury it, like a lid on a sealed vault. Others talk of strange dreams, experienced after sleeping too close to the shoreline. Dreams of vast underground halls with glowing ceilings, long stairways spiraling downward, and voices speaking in languages that have never been heard before. A few researchers tried to map the anomaly, using advanced LiDAR from aircraft, but the blue of the lake absorbs too much light. Whatever lies beneath refuses to be clearly seen. It's as if the Earth wants it forgotten. And then there's the temperature. Despite its depth, the bottom of Lake Tazawa remains unnaturally warm, by as much as 8 to 10 degrees Celsius more than expected. There is no thermal vent, no geothermal explanation. It's just warm. One diver described the descent as dropping into silence, the kind where your ears don't just ring, they ache. His team got as close as 100 meters from the bottom before their cameras abruptly cut out. He recalled seeing faint, angular outlines in the darkness, lines too straight to be natural, disappearing into the murk. No one has reached the floor since. No full exploration has ever been allowed. And now, strange requests from private firms have started showing up, asking for exclusive rights to explore the lake with classified equipment. Local officials won't say who or why. So what is the grid beneath Lake Tazawa? A ruin? A machine? A buried city? Or could it be something even older, older than humans, still powered, still waiting, still hidden beneath the water's perfect blue silence? The forgotten labyrinth beneath Crete. There are ruins that whisper, but few whisper as eerily or as persistently as those buried under the Greek island of Crete. For decades, archaeologists believed they had mapped the majority of Crete's ancient ruins. Yet, in 1900, when British archaeologist Arthur Evans began excavating the sprawling ruins of Knossos, what he uncovered challenged the very limits of known history. Beneath the palace, hints emerged of something deeper, something far older. Not a second palace or burial chamber, but a twisting underground network, a labyrinth. Local legends for centuries had told of this labyrinth, a vast underground maze said to house the Minotaur, a creature half man, half bull. Most scholars dismissed the story as myth, but the real puzzle wasn't the beast. It was the structure itself, because beneath Knossos were narrow, winding corridors carved with an uncanny precision that defied their supposed Bronze Age origin. No one could say who had carved them, or why, or how they had been sealed so seamlessly that they disappeared from memory. In 2018, a team of remote sensing experts from a European university conducted ground-penetrating radar scans near Knossos. Their data revealed several anomalies, voids, some vast, others maze-like in design, lying deeper than expected beneath the bedrock. But when a permit request to excavate was filed, the Greek government denied access, citing cultural sensitivity. No explanation followed. Even more bizarrely, in the 1960s, an English explorer named Nicholas Hammond claimed to have entered a previously unknown subterranean section near Gordon, 50 kilometers from Knossos. What he described was not a natural cave or a mine. It was a corridor, narrow, cold, and echoing with unnatural silence. The walls, he said, were engraved with strange symbols, not Greek, not Minoan, but something entirely foreign. When he tried to revisit the site weeks later with a team, the entrance had collapsed. Another theory emerged in the 1980s when a retired French military engineer proposed that the labyrinth was not merely a myth, but a highly advanced underground complex designed to manipulate sound. He claimed that low-frequency tones, like those created by ancient horns or wind instruments, could travel through the chambers and trigger strange resonance patterns. Sound that confused, disoriented, or entranced. Sound that created the illusion of monsters in the dark. None of these theories were accepted by mainstream academia, but none could be disproven either. Even modern maps of the area around Knossos show dead zones, stretches of land not scanned, not dug, not walked in decades. Some speculate that the government is aware of something older than the Minoans, something that could rewrite the region's entire prehistory. Curiously, local shepherds occasionally report strange sounds near the region's closed-off archaeological zones, low droning hums that seem to move underground. Others tell stories of livestock disappearing into sinkholes that appear for a day and vanish by morning. Many of the older villagers still refuse to walk alone at night near those hills, not because of myth, but because of memory. What lies beneath Crete may not be just stone corridors or Minoan legends. It might be a record of a culture older than any known to Europe. A culture that didn't just bury its dead, but buried its entire world. And the labyrinth. Perhaps it was never meant to trap a beast. Perhaps it was designed to keep something in. The disappearance of the Ubor oasis, deep within the scorching emptiness of the Rub al-Khali, also known as the empty quarter of Arabia, there are tales of an ancient city swallowed by the sands. A city once bursting with wealth, trade, and culture, yet so prideful it was said to have drawn the wrath of higher powers. This is Ubor, or as old Arabic texts call it, Iram of the Pillars. It's not just myth. The Quran references Iram as a real place, immense, powerful, and ultimately destroyed. For centuries, its very existence remained a puzzle. Some believed it was no more than a parable. Others were certain that it was out there, somewhere beneath the dunes, hidden in silence. Then, in the early 1990s, satellite imaging from NASA began to uncover ancient caravan routes deep in the desert. These trails converged at a single point. Archaeologists, intrigued by the clues, launched expeditions into the harsh desert, and what they found stunned the world. The ruins of a settlement buried beneath centuries of sand. This site, known today as Shisar, contained a massive stone fortress-like structure and evidence of a once thriving community, centered around a life-giving oasis. It matched the ancient descriptions of Ubor almost too well. The city appears to have collapsed into a massive limestone sinkhole, its very center caved in and lost. The cause remains debated. Was it an earthquake, a sudden shift in the water table, or was it, as ancient lore suggests, divine retribution for hubris? That's where the mystery thickens. Geologists studying the area confirm that such a collapse could happen naturally, but the timing remains peculiar. Oral traditions in the region describe a sudden vanishing, not a gradual abandonment. A place teeming with camels, traders, and treasures simply vanishing overnight. There are no clear signs of battle, fire, or plague, just silence. What truly perplexes scholars is how advanced the city seemed for its time. It was a key hub along the frankincense trade route, controlling wealth that rivaled kingdoms. Its architectural features, water management systems, and social organization suggest a high level of sophistication, not something built in isolation. Even now, only parts of the ruins have been excavated. Beneath the desert, more secrets likely remain. Was this truly Ubor, or another city entirely? And if it was Ubor, why was such an influential hub left out of most historical records, only to live on in myth? Some archaeologists suggest that Ubor was not a city, but a region, perhaps a network of settlements connected by trade and common culture. If true, then the collapse of Shisar might be only one piece of a much larger puzzle. Other clues found in ancient manuscripts point to lost cities hidden beneath different parts of the Arabian sands. Cities yet to be found, each holding its own piece of the story. Satellite scans have continued to reveal odd patterns beneath the surface of the Rub al-Khali, unnatural lines, rectangular formations, and magnetic anomalies, too structured to be random, but too eroded to be easily interpreted. Exploration is difficult. The desert is one of the most inhospitable places on Earth, with shifting dunes that can bury ruins in weeks. So, what happened to Ubor? Was it a real city destroyed by a natural disaster? A cautionary tale woven into legend? Or does it still lie beneath the sands, its full story yet to be unearthed? As expeditions press deeper into the empty quarter, we may be on the edge of rediscovering a forgotten civilization, one whose collapse may hold lessons we've yet to understand. The tomb beneath no one's kingdom, the unclaimed sarcophagus of Helwan, in the vast deserts just south of Cairo. Not far from the edges of ancient Memphis, there lies a lesser-known necropolis known as Helwan. It stretches for miles, filled with weather-worn tombs and broken stone structures that most visitors never hear about. Unlike the Great Pyramids that draw crowds, this place rests quietly under the sand, hiding something that has left archaeologists whispering for decades. In 1942, a team of Egyptian researchers uncovered a buried chamber that seemed older than most of the surrounding tombs. Deep underground, under layers of rubble and sand, they found a sealed sarcophagus, massive, undecorated, and made of a dense black basalt. It had no markings, no inscriptions, and no signs of ownership. That alone was unusual. In ancient Egypt, almost everything was labeled: names, dates, titles, prayers. But this sarcophagus was silent. When the team finally opened it, they found a mummified body inside. But the burial did not match any known royal custom. The wrappings were strange. The amulets placed along the body didn't follow any clear sequence. The body itself was preserved unusually well, but there were no records, no scrolls, and no evidence to link the man inside to any pharaoh, priest, or noble lineage. The tomb didn't belong to anyone. For years, researchers tried to place the burial within the known dynasties. Was it a forgotten prince? A disgraced noble? A high priest whose name had been erased? But carbon dating placed the burial somewhere between 2700 and 2600 BCE, possibly during the transition between Egypt's second and third dynasties. That's a period clouded in historical confusion. Even Egyptologists admit they don't fully understand what happened during those centuries. Kings ruled for brief periods. Civil unrest likely occurred. Records from that time are few and contradictory. This man, whoever he was, seemed to have been buried with care, deep underground in a private chamber that had been deliberately hidden, not looted. But why was his identity completely erased? Even stranger were the items found near the tomb. Among the debris were fragments of tools made from a dark stone-like material that didn't match any known local quarry. Some of the stone seemed melted or burned at extremely high temperatures, far beyond what was possible with ancient Egyptian technology at that time. The tools weren't recognizably Egyptian in shape or style. One even resembled something like a blade, curved and tapered, but not made from bronze, copper, or flint. A few small metal fragments were recovered as well, but tests revealed an alloy not typical of Egypt's known metallurgical practices. It contained traces of vanadium, rarely used in the ancient world. To this day, no one knows how those materials ended up in the burial chamber, or who brought them there. There are no other tombs like this one in Helwan. It stands alone, built with greater effort, using heavier stone, and buried deeper than anything else in the area. And yet, it has no royal markings. It's as if someone of enormous importance was buried there. But everyone was ordered to forget. Some historians have theorized that this was the burial of a usurper, someone who took power in a forgotten civil conflict, and was later erased from history. Others argue it might have been a member of a pre-dynastic civilization that existed before the unification of Egypt, someone powerful enough to warrant a monumental tomb, but ultimately lost to time. There is even a fringe theory that the man entombed was not from Egypt at all, that he came from outside, bringing strange tools and knowledge, and was buried in secret by a group that wanted his memory protected or hidden. Another unexplained detail: the orientation of the tomb. Unlike most burials of that era, which align east-west toward the rising and setting sun, This sarcophagus faced true north, with uncanny accuracy. Only advanced surveying tools or celestial knowledge could have created that alignment. Some researchers have quietly questioned whether this indicates knowledge of the stars that exceeds what's been attributed to that time. There were no papyri inside, no seal of the pharaoh, no statues, funerary masks, or traditional offerings. Just the body, the black basalt, and a silence that still lingers in the chamber. The Egyptian authorities resealed the tomb in the 1960s after further digs yielded nothing conclusive. It has remained mostly undisturbed ever since. Today, the location is known to a few scholars, but it is rarely spoken of in public. It doesn't appear in most archaeological maps. It's as if it's been quietly forgotten again, deliberately or not. Some say the burial is evidence of a lost dynasty. Others believe it marks the grave of someone erased during one of Egypt's internal collapses. But the more daring theories suggest something much older, perhaps even pre-pharaonic. A man from a forgotten age, carrying knowledge or technology that did not survive the rewriting of history. Whatever the truth may be, the unclaimed sarcophagus of Helwan remains untouched, a monument to a man without a name, and a mystery that refuses to be placed in any category. Maybe that's how it was intended all along, not to be solved, not to be named, but simply to endure, locked in stone, hidden in silence, and buried beneath no one's kingdom. The Voynich manuscript, an ancient text written in an unbreakable code for over 600 years, one of the most baffling and unsolvable mysteries in the world, has been the Voynich manuscript. This ancient book, filled with strange, indecipherable text and bizarre illustrations, has confounded linguists, cryptographers, and historians alike. The manuscript is thought to date back to the early 15th century, though its true origins remain a mystery, and it has never been definitively understood. The manuscript is named after Wilfrid Voynich, the antiquarian who purchased it in 1912. However, the manuscript's origins long predate him. It is believed to have been created by an unknown author, written in an entirely unique and mysterious script that has never been seen anywhere else in the world. The text appears to be a complex language, but no one has ever been able to decode it. The Voynich manuscript contains hundreds of pages, and its contents are both perplexing and surreal. The book features intricate drawings of plants that do not appear to match any known species, bizarre astrological charts, and strange depictions of human figures engaged in unexplainable rituals. There are images of women bathing in green pools, and odd symbols scattered throughout the pages, further adding to the enigma. For centuries, scholars and cryptographers have tried to make sense of the manuscript. Some believe it is a coded text, perhaps a lost language, or a complex cipher, while others have speculated that it could be a work of alchemy, a book of ancient medical knowledge, or a guide to an esoteric spiritual practice. Yet, despite decades of effort, no one has successfully deciphered the meaning of the text, leading many to wonder whether the manuscript is simply a hoax, a product of medieval creativity without real meaning. In the early 20th century, modern cryptographers and computer scientists took up the challenge, analyzing the manuscript with the latest technology. Yet, even the most advanced algorithms failed to crack its code. Some have pointed to patterns in the text that suggest it is not a hoax or random gibberish, but rather an intentional and highly structured system, potentially containing knowledge that remains locked away. One of the most perplexing aspects of the Voynich manuscript is its mysterious origins. How did a book written in an unknown language end up in the hands of Wilfrid Voynich, and how did it survive through centuries without its secrets being uncovered? The manuscript was likely written in the early 1400s, and it appears to have been passed through various hands over the years. Some suggest that it was created by an individual or a group with specialized knowledge, but others believe it may have been commissioned by an organization, perhaps even an early secret society. The book's journey through history is almost as mysterious as its content. At various points in time, it was owned by famous individuals, including the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II, who believed it to be a work of great importance. Over the centuries, the manuscript passed through a series of owners, but it wasn't until the early 20th century that it was brought to widespread attention. Theories abound about the purpose of the manuscript. Some scholars believe it was a pharmacopoeia or a herbal text, with the strange plants depicted in the illustrations possibly being real, but unidentified species. Others suggest it as a coded work of alchemy, a guide to secret knowledge about the natural world and the universe. Still, others think the manuscript may be a more mystical or spiritual work. The strange illustrations could represent some form of ancient lost religious practice or a meditative journey. The mysterious symbols might be an early form of a secret code used by a forgotten group or society. Despite all these theories, no one has been able to prove the manuscript's purpose or its origin. What makes the Voynich manuscript so fascinating is its resistance to understanding. It is a puzzle that, despite the efforts of the world's best minds, remains unsolved. Is it a book of ancient knowledge, hidden away from the world, or is it a hoax, a work of medieval fantasy, with no deeper meaning? Whatever its true purpose, the Voynich manuscript remains one of the most intriguing and elusive mysteries in history, and it seems that its secrets will remain locked in time for the foreseeable future. The manuscript is currently housed in the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University, where it continues to draw curious scholars and researchers from around the world. The true story behind the manuscript remains as elusive as ever, keeping its secrets buried deep within its pages. Will we ever decipher the code, or is the Voynich manuscript a mystery that is meant to stay unsolved forever? The Taos Hum, the unexplained sound that drives people crazy. In the quiet, scenic town of Taos, New Mexico, residents and visitors have been reporting a strange and persistent low-frequency hum for decades. This bizarre sound, which is often described as a droning or buzzing noise, is audible only to some people, and no one seems to know its true origin. Known as the Taos Hum, this unexplained phenomenon has perplexed scientists, researchers, and the people living in the area for over 70 years. The first reports of the Taos Hum date back to the early 1990s, though it's believed that the phenomenon might have existed for much longer. The hum is typically described as a faint, deep, vibrating noise that sounds like the distant hum of a diesel engine or a large industrial machine. It's so low-pitched that it's almost inaudible to most people, but a small percentage of the population, usually about 2 to 5% of those who live in or visit the area, are able to hear it clearly. People who can hear the Taos Hum often describe it as a constant annoyance that disrupts their daily lives. It's been reported to cause symptoms like headaches, nausea, insomnia, and extreme irritability. Some claim it drives them to madness, as the noise is constant, often only stopping when they leave the town. Despite numerous investigations, scientists have been unable to pinpoint the exact source of the hum. Several theories have been proposed to explain its origins, but none of them have been proven definitively. One possibility is that the hum is related to the unique geography of Taos. The town sits in a valley surrounded by mountains, and some researchers suggest that the sound could be caused by a rare combination of wind patterns, which might amplify and resonate certain low-frequency noises. This could create a natural phenomenon that only a small group of people with sensitive hearing can detect. However, this theory doesn't account for the fact that the hum is described as being constant, often continuing even during calm weather. Other theories suggest that the hum could be linked to man-made sources. Some point to industrial equipment, military testing, or secret government operations. The nearby White Sands Missile Range, known for its extensive military tests, has often been suggested as a potential cause. Some people believe the hum could be a form of electromagnetic radiation or an undiscovered technological signal emanating from military activity or experimental research. A more far-fetched theory involves the presence of underground structures or secret tunnels beneath Taos. Some locals speculate that the hum is caused by vibrations from subterranean activity, though there's little evidence to support this idea. Another theory that has gained attention is that the hum might have psychological or physiological causes. It's been suggested that certain people might be more sensitive to sound due to a condition known as hypersensitivity to sound, or that it could be a form of auditory hallucination. However, the fact that the hum is heard by multiple people at once, and in specific geographic locations, makes this explanation less likely. Over the years, the Taos hum has remained a mystery. Despite efforts by various organizations and researchers to study the sound, no concrete explanation has emerged. Even more frustrating is that many people who hear the hum have reported no sources of noise when they try to locate it, and others who do not hear it can't understand why it drives some people to the edge of their sanity. The Taos hum has become one of the most enduring mysteries in modern history. Its origins remain a puzzle, and for those who hear it, the relentless hum continues to cast a shadow over the otherwise peaceful town of Taos. Is it a natural occurrence, a result of human activity, or something even stranger? The answers remain elusive, and the hum continues to haunt those who experience it. The Green Children of Woolpit, a tale of mysterious children from another world. In the 12th century, a strange and puzzling event occurred in the village of Woolpit, Suffolk, England. Two children, one boy and one girl, appeared seemingly out of nowhere, emerging from a mysterious green light in a local wolf pit, an ancient term for a trap used to catch wolves. They spoke an unknown language, wore odd clothing, and had skin that was an unusual green color. Their story has intrigued historians, cryptographers, and even modern-day conspiracy theorists for centuries. The children, who were discovered by villagers, were reportedly starving and appeared to be in poor health. After being taken in by the villagers, the children were given food and care, though they initially refused to eat. Eventually, they began to consume food, but they would only eat beans. Over time, they began to recover, though they still maintained their strange appearance and behavior. The boy, who is said to have died shortly after the encounter, was described as being more withdrawn and ill. The girl, however, survived and went on to lead a life in the village. She learned to speak English and explained the strange circumstances of her and her brother's arrival. According to her account, she and her brother had come from a place called St. Martin's Land, a strange world that existed alongside ours. The children claimed to have come from a land where everything was green, green fields, green trees, and green light. The girl's story became even more bizarre when she explained that they had been tending to their father's cattle when they had wandered into a cave and found themselves transported to this strange world. According to her, they had been lost in this otherworldly land for what seemed like a long time before they found their way to the wolf pit where they were discovered. Some historians have suggested that the story of the Green Children is merely a folk tale or a product of medieval superstition, possibly invented to explain an event that could not otherwise be understood. However, others believe that the story may have a kernel of truth to it, pointing to the children's greenish tint as evidence of a medical condition. One popular theory is that the children may have suffered from a form of chlorosis, a condition caused by iron deficiency, which can cause the skin to appear greenish. Others believe the children's strange story could be a result of cultural confusion, where they may have come from a foreign land and simply had difficulty communicating with the local villagers. Their green skin and peculiar behavior could have been misinterpreted as something supernatural, leading to the creation of the legend. Yet another theory involves the possibility that the children were the survivors of a shipwreck or had been kidnapped from another part of the world, their appearance and language altered by their isolation and trauma. Some speculate that they were refugees from a foreign country who had lost their way and ended up in Woolpit, but the most compelling theory remains that of their potential origin from another world entirely, a parallel dimension, an alternate reality, or even some kind of lost civilization. The idea that the Green Children were not of this earth has inspired countless theories, including the suggestion that they were from an advanced civilization with the ability to travel between dimensions. The Green Children's strange story continues to baffle researchers, with no definitive explanation to this day. Was it a case of children lost in a foreign land, a medical condition that caused their unusual appearance? Or is there something more to the tale, a hint at a parallel world, a rift in time, or a cosmic accident that brought them to Earth. The case of the Green Children of Woolpit remains one of the most fascinating unsolved mysteries of medieval England. Their story has inspired books, films, and even academic studies as people continue to search for the truth behind the mysterious appearance of these enigmatic children. Despite centuries of speculation, the true origin of the Green Children remains as elusive as ever. Was their tale a simple myth, or did they truly come from another world? The answer may never be known, but the mystery of the Green Children of Woolpit continues to captivate the imagination of those seeking to uncover the truth. The Taos hum, a baffling, low-frequency noise. In the small town of Taos, New Mexico, a mysterious phenomenon has baffled residents and scientists alike for decades, known as the Taos hum. This low-frequency noise is only heard by a small percentage of the population, and it has been a source of intrigue and frustration for many who live in the area. The hum, described as a faint but persistent noise, sounds like a distant engine idling, a low-pitched hum that can be heard especially in quiet environments. People who hear the hum describe it as a constant, droning noise that seems to come from nowhere, often disturbing their sleep and causing headaches, dizziness, and even anxiety. The hum is so elusive that it cannot be reliably recorded or measured by most standard equipment, making it even more perplexing. Despite extensive investigations, scientists have yet to determine the true cause of the Taos hum. It was first reported in the early 1990s by a small number of residents in Taos, but soon reports began to surface in other parts of the world, including the United Kingdom, Canada, and even parts of the United States. However, the phenomenon remains most closely associated with Taos, where it is so prevalent that it has become a part of local folklore. Researchers have attempted to pinpoint the source of the hum, but no clear explanation has emerged. One theory is that the noise could be caused by industrial machinery, such as air conditioning units, power plants, or oil refineries, though there is no known industrial facility in the area that could explain the sound. Some speculate that it could be related to electromagnetic interference or radio signals, while others have proposed that it might be linked to military activities or secret government experiments, particularly due to the proximity of military testing sites like the White Sands Missile Range. Another hypothesis suggests that the hum is related to the phenomenon known as infrasound, a sound frequency that is below the range of human hearing, but still capable of being perceived by the brain. Some researchers believe that infrasound could be produced by natural events, such as seismic activity or wind patterns, or even by human-made sources like turbines or large machinery. However, despite extensive research, no consistent infrasound source has been identified in Taos. Some believe that the hum could be a psychological phenomenon, with the sound only being perceived by certain individuals who are particularly sensitive to it. Psychological theories propose that it could be a form of tinnitus, a condition where the individual hears a ringing or buzzing sound in their ears, though the Taos hum has been reported to be a low-frequency noise that does not match the typical characteristics of tinnitus. This theory suggests that the sound may be related to stress, anxiety, or environmental factors that trigger auditory hallucinations in vulnerable individuals. There are even more unusual theories about the Taos hum, ranging from the supernatural to the extraterrestrial. Some residents of Taos believe that the hum is linked to UFO activity, speculating that it may be a signal or transmission from extraterrestrial visitors. This theory is fueled by the area's history of UFO sightings, including reports of strange lights in the sky and unexplainable aerial phenomena. Could the Taos hum be an alien signal, a form of communication, or a warning from beyond our world? Despite numerous investigations by local authorities, scientists, and even amateur sleuths, the source of the Taos hum remains unknown. While some residents have gotten used to the sound, others continue to seek answers, and the phenomenon remains a defining mystery of the town. Whether it's a natural phenomenon, a psychological anomaly, or something far stranger, the Taos hum continues to elude any definitive explanation. The phenomenon has since become a part of Taos's identity, with visitors to the town often inquiring about it. While some residents can't hear it at all, others say they've lived with the hum for so long that it's become a part of their everyday experience. However, for those who hear it, the noise remains an enduring source of frustration and confusion. Is the Taos hum simply an auditory illusion? Could it be a rare environmental phenomenon, an undiscovered sound produced by natural forces? Or is it something far more mysterious, linked to secret military experiments, extraterrestrial activity, or a rift in the fabric of reality itself? The truth behind the Taos hum remains a mystery, and it is one that may never be solved. The disappearance of the USS Cyclops, vanishing without a trace. In 1918, one of the most baffling disappearances in maritime history occurred: the mysterious vanishing of the USS Cyclops, a massive U.S. Navy ship that seemingly vanished without a trace during its voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. The ship's disappearance has remained unsolved, contributing to a century-long mystery that continues to intrigue investigators, historians, and conspiracy theorists alike. The USS Cyclops was a collier ship used by the U.S. Navy during World War I to transport coal to fuel the fleet. The vessel was over 500 feet long and capable of carrying more than 10,000 tons of coal. It was one of the largest ships in the U.S. Navy at the time and had a crew of over 300 men. In early 1918, the ship set sail from the island of Barbados in the Caribbean, headed toward Baltimore, Maryland, with a full load of coal. The voyage was not expected to be particularly dangerous, and the ship had made numerous successful trips in the past. However, after the Cyclops left Barbados on March 4, 1918, it never arrived at its destination. The last communication from the ship came on March 9th, when the captain, Lieutenant Commander George Worley, sent a routine radio message indicating that everything was proceeding smoothly. But after that, no further signals were received, and the ship vanished without a single distress call or trace. The search for the Cyclops began almost immediately, with the U.S. Navy deploying numerous ships and aircraft to comb the vast stretch of the Atlantic Ocean. Despite an extensive search operation that lasted for weeks, no wreckage, debris, or survivors were ever found. The disappearance of the Cyclops remains one of the greatest unsolved maritime mysteries in history, and it is often cited as a key event in the series of unexplained disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle. Several theories have been proposed to explain the ship's disappearance, but none have been conclusively proven. Some believe the Cyclops was the victim of a catastrophic event, such as a massive structural failure or an explosion. The ship had been carrying a large amount of coal, and it is possible that a fire started in the cargo hold and eventually caused an explosion. However, this theory is contradicted by the fact that the Cyclops had a very capable crew and well-established safety protocols, which would have likely prevented such an incident. Another theory is that the Cyclops was sunk by a German U-boat, as it was during World War I. The U-boats were known to target ships in the Atlantic, and the Cyclops would have been a prime target due to its size and importance to the U.S. Navy. However, no evidence of a U-boat attack has ever been found, and it seems unlikely that the Cyclops would not have sent a distress signal if it had been attacked. Some have suggested that the Cyclops fell victim to the powerful currents and unpredictable weather patterns of the Bermuda Triangle, an area in the Atlantic Ocean known for mysterious disappearances. The Bermuda Triangle is often associated with ships and aircraft vanishing without a trace, and many theorists believe that the ship could have been caught in a sudden violent storm or even a whirlpool, leading to its sinking. However, there is no conclusive evidence linking the Cyclops to the Bermuda Triangle, and the ship was traveling far north of the Triangle's most notorious region at the time of its disappearance. Others have speculated that the Cyclops was the victim of foul play, possibly involving sabotage or mutiny. Some researchers point to the fact that the ship's captain, Lieutenant Commander George Worley, was known to have had previous disciplinary issues, including an alleged history of insubordination. Could there have been a conspiracy to sink the ship, perhaps involving crew members or outside forces? The mystery surrounding the Cyclops also contributes to the broader intrigue surrounding the lost fleet of the Bermuda Triangle, a group of ships and aircraft that have vanished mysteriously in the region over the years. While the Cyclops was not directly in the Bermuda Triangle when it disappeared, its vanishing has nonetheless become part of the mythos surrounding this area, with many wondering if there could be a connection between these unexplained disappearances. Despite numerous theories and investigations over the years, the disappearance of the USS Cyclops remains unsolved. In 2018, the U.S. Navy formally declared the ship presumed lost and closed the case. But the enigma of the Cyclops persists, with no physical evidence to confirm its fate, and no survivors to tell the story. The ship's disappearance, along with the loss of its crew, remains one of the most baffling and tragic mysteries in naval history. Was the USS Cyclops the victim of an accident, enemy action, or something more sinister? Could it have been lost to the treacherous waters of the Bermuda Triangle, or was there a deeper conspiracy behind its vanishing? While the true fate of the Cyclops may never be known, its disappearance continues to captivate the imagination of those who seek answers to one of the most perplexing mysteries of the sea. The lost colony of Roanoke, an entire settlement disappears. In 1587, a group of English settlers arrived on the island of Roanoke, off the coast of what is now North Carolina. They were led by John White, who was tasked with establishing a permanent English colony in the New World. But when White returned 3 years later in 1590, he found that the colony had vanished, leaving behind only one cryptic clue, the word Croatoan carved into a post. The disappearance of the Roanoke colony is one of America's oldest and most enduring unsolved mysteries, baffling historians, archaeologists, and researchers for centuries. What happened to the settlers of Roanoke? Did they leave willingly, or were they victims of violence or disaster? And what did the word Croatoan mean? The answer to these questions remains elusive. The story of Roanoke begins in 1585, when Sir Walter Raleigh, an English explorer, established the first colony on Roanoke Island. However, this initial settlement was short-lived and plagued by poor relations with the local Native American tribes, food shortages, and an insufficient supply of resources. As a result, many of the settlers abandoned the colony and returned to England. In 1587, a new group of settlers, led by John White, arrived at Roanoke Island with the hope of establishing a more successful and permanent settlement. White was chosen to lead the expedition, and he brought with him his wife, daughter, and granddaughter. Upon their arrival, White and the settlers began construction of a new colony. Soon after their arrival, White decided to return to England for supplies, as their provisions were running low. He promised to return quickly, but due to a series of delays, most notably the outbreak of the Anglo-Spanish War, White was unable to return to Roanoke for 3 years. When he finally arrived back on the island in 1590, White was shocked to find that the settlement was completely abandoned. The houses had been dismantled, and there was no sign of the settlers. The only clue that remained was the word Croatoan, carved into a post, and the letters CRO carved into a tree nearby. Croatoan was the name of a nearby island, and it was believed that the settlers may have relocated there. But no one knows for certain. Despite a thorough search of the area, no trace of the settlers was ever found. White's search for them on Croatoan Island, located about 50 miles away, was unsuccessful. The settlers were never heard from again, and their fate remains a mystery. Several theories have been proposed to explain the disappearance of the Roanoke colony, but none have been definitively proven. Some believe that the settlers may have been attacked by Native American tribes, who were already hostile toward the English settlers due to previous conflicts. However, there is no concrete evidence to support this theory, and some researchers suggest that the settlers may have been integrated into nearby tribes, particularly the Croatoan people, who lived on the island near where the clue was found. Another theory is that the settlers simply abandoned the island and relocated elsewhere. Some believe that they may have moved north to join another English settlement, or even gone further inland, away from the coast. However, the lack of any definitive evidence of their relocation makes this theory difficult to prove. One of the most intriguing and speculative theories is that the settlers may have been the victims of a natural disaster, such as a hurricane or flood, which could have destroyed their settlement and scattered the survivors. But given the time frame, 3 years, this theory seems less likely, especially as the colony was located in a relatively sheltered area. A more recent theory suggests that the settlers may have fallen victim to a disease, such as smallpox, which would have decimated their population and led to their eventual abandonment of the colony. However, no evidence of mass graves or remains has been found to support this idea. Over the years, numerous expeditions have been launched to uncover the truth behind the fate of the Roanoke colony. Archaeologists have excavated parts of Roanoke Island and surrounding areas in an attempt to find evidence of the settlers. In the 1990s, for example, a team of researchers uncovered artifacts that appeared to be of European origin, suggesting that the settlers may have integrated with Native American tribes. However, these findings have not provided definitive answers. The disappearance of the Roanoke colony has been the subject of countless books, documentaries, and theories, and it continues to captivate the public imagination. The mystery of the lost colony has even found its way into popular culture, inspiring movies, TV shows, and even a national park in North Carolina, dedicated to exploring the history and mystery of Roanoke Island. The word Croatoan remains the only clue that the settlers left behind, and its meaning has been the subject of much debate. Some historians believe that it refers to the Croatoan island, where the settlers may have relocated, while others speculate that it was a message to future English explorers, indicating where the settlers had gone. Some even suggest that the word could have been a form of distress signal, indicating that the settlers were in trouble. Despite centuries of research, the fate of the Roanoke colony remains a mystery. The question of what happened to the settlers, who they were, and where they went still haunts those who study the history of early American colonization. While it is possible that the truth may never be uncovered, the mystery of Roanoke continues to captivate historians, archaeologists, and curious minds around the world. The Dyatlov Pass Incident. 9 skiers' unexplained deaths in the Ural Mountains. In February of 1959, 9 experienced hikers from the Ural Polytechnic Institute in Sverdlovsk, Soviet Union, embarked on a skiing expedition in the remote, snow-covered mountains of the northern Ural Range. They set out on a journey that was supposed to last several days, but what was intended to be a routine trip turned into one of the most puzzling and eerie mysteries in history. When the hikers failed to return as scheduled, a search party was sent out. What they discovered at the site of the hikers' camp sent shockwaves through the Soviet Union and the world. The bodies of the hikers were found scattered across the snow, and the circumstances surrounding their deaths remain inexplicable to this day. The Dyatlov Pass Incident, named after Igor Dyatlov, the leader of the group, has become one of the most mysterious and debated unsolved events in modern history. What happened to these 9 hikers? Why did they abandon their tent in the middle of a freezing night and flee into the wilderness without proper clothing or equipment? And how did they die in such an eerie and puzzling manner? The mystery begins with the group's journey. Led by Igor Dyatlov, the team of experienced hikers included 8 men and 2 women, all of whom were skilled mountaineers. Their expedition was planned as a challenging trek, but there was nothing to indicate that the journey would take a deadly turn. They were well prepared for the conditions they would face, and they had experienced hikers with them, so what could have gone so wrong? It wasn't until February 26, 1959, that the team failed to make it to their designated destination, a remote settlement known as Vizhay. The search for the missing hikers began after their families raised the alarm. On March 1st, a search team found their abandoned tent on the slopes of a mountain, later named Dyatlov Pass. It was found to be cut open from the inside, suggesting that the hikers had fled in a hurry. Inside the tent, their belongings were left behind, and a strange trail of footprints led away from the camp, some of which were found to be barefooted in the snow, even though temperatures were well below freezing. The search team continued to search the area and soon discovered the bodies of the hikers scattered around the site. Two were found with severe head trauma, one with a crushed chest, and another with a missing tongue. Several of the hikers had injuries that would normally be associated with a high-force impact, such as a car crash. Yet there were no signs of a struggle, and their injuries were inconsistent with a simple fall or accident. It was also found that some of the hikers' clothes were inexplicably missing, and the bodies of the two hikers who had been found in the forest were partially dressed in the clothing of other members of the group, suggesting that they had scavenged the clothing of their companions as they succumbed to the cold. Some of the more puzzling elements of the case included the fact that no signs of external wounds were found on some of the hikers, yet their internal injuries appeared to be much more severe. The most unsettling of all was the discovery of radiation contamination on some of the hikers' clothing, though there was no clear explanation for how they could have come into contact with such materials in such a remote and isolated area. The most chilling aspect of the Dyatlov Pass incident, however, is the complete lack of any explanation. While there were numerous theories proposed over the years, including those involving natural phenomena, attacks from local indigenous groups, military testing, and even an encounter with Yeti-like creatures, none have been conclusively proven. A Soviet investigation concluded that the hikers had died as a result of a compelling force, but it offered no further details or conclusions. The official cause of death was listed as hypothermia, but the other injuries to the hikers' bodies remained unexplained. In the decades that followed, the case became the subject of extensive speculation, with many people suggesting that there was a cover-up by the Soviet government. Some believed that the hikers had stumbled upon a secret military testing site, possibly related to the development of weapons or experimental aircraft. Others argued that the hikers had encountered something far stranger, with theories ranging from encounters with wild animals, such as a bear, to the idea of an unknown hostile force, such as a creature or even an alien encounter. One of the most popular modern theories is that the hikers were the victims of a rare weather phenomenon called a katabatic wind. This powerful cold wind, which can descend quickly from the mountains, could have caused the hikers to panic and flee the tent in terror, only to be caught in the harsh freezing environment. The injuries sustained by some of the hikers, such as the internal trauma and missing eyes and tongue, have been attributed by some to the effects of the wind, which could have created violent gusts that resulted in severe pressure to the hikers' bodies. Another plausible theory involves a possible avalanche. The hikers had set up their camp on a slope, and some researchers have suggested that a small avalanche could have occurred in the night, forcing them to flee in a panic. However, the lack of snow or debris in the area has raised questions about this theory. In 2019, Russian investigators reopened the case and concluded that an avalanche or snow slab could have been responsible for the incident. However, this theory still doesn't explain some of the more bizarre aspects of the case, such as the missing tongue, the radiation found on their clothes, or the injuries that seem inconsistent with an avalanche. Despite decades of investigation, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains unsolved, and it has captivated the public's imagination for years. Theories continue to circulate, and the mystery still lingers over the tragic fate of the 9 hikers. The Dyatlov Pass incident serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers that can lie hidden in the wilderness, and the uncertainties that come with venturing into the unknown. Whether the hikers were the victims of an accident, a secret military operation, or something far stranger, the truth remains elusive, and the mystery endures. The giant footprints of Ain Dara, clues to a lost colossus? In the hills of northern Syria, not far from the ancient city of Aleppo, lies a set of ruins that have puzzled archaeologists for decades. Among the worn stone foundations and scattered columns of the Ain Dara temple complex, something deeply unusual waits in plain sight. 2 massive footprints, each over 1 meter long, carved directly into the stone floor. Unlike anything else found in the ancient Near East, these mysterious impressions raise a question that still echoes through the archaeological world. Who or what were these footsteps meant to represent? The Ain Dara temple dates back to the Iron Age, constructed sometime between 1300 and 740 BCE. It's thought to have been dedicated to a deity, possibly Ishtar or Baal-Hadad, and the architecture shares striking similarities with descriptions of Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. But while much of the temple is typical of its time, decorative basalt lions, sphinxes, and ornate relief carvings, the footprints defy any ordinary explanation. The first footprint is located just at the temple's threshold. The second, about 10 meters ahead, appears mid-stride, as if the figure walked directly into the sacred chamber. If they are literal footprints, they would belong to a being at least 60 feet tall. Were they symbolic, ceremonial, or could they point to something older, something tied to long-lost beliefs about divine giants or forgotten deities? What deepens the mystery is the craftsmanship. These aren't rough impressions, each toe is clearly outlined, and the heels sink slightly deeper into the stone, mimicking the pressure one would expect from a real step. The placement isn't random either. Their orientation seems intentional, suggesting a deliberate narrative. A being enters, walks forward, and vanishes. Curiously, similar colossal footprints have been reported in other ancient sites across the world. In India's Tamil Nadu region, Sri Lanka, South Africa, and even on an isolated plateau in Bolivia, legends speak of giants who once roamed the earth. Some of these sites also display enormous footprints carved or impressed into stone, often near temples or sacred places. What could explain this repeated motif? One theory suggests that the Ain-Dara prints symbolize a divine presence, perhaps marking where a god or goddess was believed to have entered the temple. In ancient Mesopotamian and Levantine cultures, gods were often imagined as physically immense, and temples were considered the literal homes of these beings. The footprints then may be a kind of visual storytelling, a sacred metaphor etched in stone, but others are not so sure. A growing fringe of researchers and independent historians have proposed that these footprints may point to real beings, giants whose stories were passed down in myth, but based on actual encounters. While mainstream archaeology firmly rejects the idea of ancient giants, the precision and scale of the Ain-Dara carvings leave an uneasy silence in their wake. Adding to the intrigue is what surrounds them. The temple is adorned with rich symbolic artwork, lions at the base of staircases, winged creatures on the walls, and floral designs that some scholars believe map celestial patterns. Could the entire site be part of a larger symbolic system, an attempt to encode knowledge or preserve an ancient memory? Unfortunately, a large part of the Ain-Dara temple was destroyed by an airstrike during the Syrian civil war in 2018. Much of its structure, including part of the mysterious footprints, was damaged or lost. What remains is a fragmented piece of one of the Middle East's most enigmatic relics, and the opportunity to investigate it further has been greatly diminished. Still, images, measurements, and studies survive, and with them, the questions remain. Were the footprints part of a lost religious rite, an ancient storytelling method, or something even stranger, evidence of a world before ours, populated by beings far larger than we can now imagine? The temple's designers may have intended to honor a deity, evoke a sense of awe, or mark a sacred journey. But what they left behind, whether intentional or not, touches something older in the human imagination. It evokes that age-old belief shared across continents and cultures that giants once walked the earth, and now, in the silence of the desert ruins, only their footprints remain.